Hello, fantasy baseball fans. I'm Paul Williamson. This is Fantasy MLB Today, a Sports Ethos presentation brought to you by FanDuel. As always, it's an honor and a privilege to give y'all this podcast, give y'all information, advice to help you win your leagues, give your teams a boost. Before we get to conversation for today, we're going to be joined by Britton Allan and Nathan Baker to talk about an industry mock draft that we participated in from Sports Ethos last week. We're going to remind you to follow me on Twitter at PaulW_34. On Twitter, no underscore on Bluesky, PaulW34 there. Hit me up, ask me questions, get ready for 2026 together. Same thing on YouTube, where you subscribe there in order to watch my podcast on Wednesdays during the off season. My podcast will be there as well as everywhere else where you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, all that lovely stuff. And then also please rate and subscribe there. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on all your podcast platforms, please. Really help push it out. I love it forever. Make sure you check out Sports Ethos. We've got the draft guide coming out here real soon. We had the beginning of the Williamson 300 come out. My top 20 closers, top 60 starters drop today on Monday. I'll get my offensive positions coming out in the coming week. So make sure you're checking that out at Ethos Fantasy BB on Twitter, at Ethos Fantasy MLB on Bluesky. All right, now with all that out of the way, let's bring in our guests. Begin with Britton Allan of the hope I say this correct, the Pollazzo Podcast. Make sure you go follow him at Britton Allan. It's at Britton Allan, just his name straight up on Twitter. And the at Pollazzo Podcast on Twitter and also on YouTube. Go subscribe to the podcast there. Britton, how you doing, man?
Gentlemen, thank you so much for letting me come on your podcast. I've been looking forward to it to talk a little mock draft and draft strategy. I really appreciate it, Paul, Nathan. Thank you. Like you said, I'm a co-host for a podcast called the Pollazzo Podcast. We say 2 L's, 2 Z's. Why is that the most random name you've ever heard? It's a really long story. I'm not going to bore you with it, but it's a reference back to a movie called The Naked Gun. But it's called the Pollazzo Podcast. If you love fantasy baseball, please, give us a shot and go to our YouTube page. It's Pallazzo. It's just 3 dudes. Michael Govier created it and started it, and then me and Mike V. And it's just 3 guys that love baseball, love fantasy baseball. We talk about our teams. We talk about strategy. It's just a lot of fun. And then we talk about a lot of random stuff that does what we talk about sometimes, but it's a lot of fun. Please check us out. And my Twitter handle or X handle is just my name, BRITTON ALLAN. All I tweet about or X about or whatever they call it is baseball and fantasy baseball. That's it. So if you give me a follow, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Paul.
And the key there is A-N on Allen. I misspelled it in the email, so it was a little late getting you the links there. So make sure it's A-N there for y'all. And the Naked Gun reference is kind of starting to ring a bell because I was like, why do I kind of feel like I know this? Like it's not super out of left field for me. So I mean, like I don't know if it's like a direct reference or not, but I love the Naked Gun, and so that's wonderful.
Yeah, the name of the podcast originally was "Hey, it's Enrico Pollazzo," which is, and then much like they started Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then eventually they just call it KFC. That's like us. Like it was this long, drawn out, random reference to a movie that came out in 1984, which that's a banger idea for a podcast. So then thankfully, we decided to shorten it, so now it's just Pollazzo. But yeah, it's so random. It really is.
I love it. I love it. Nathan, thank you for joining me, man. How you doing?
Doing all right. Thanks for having me back. Great to be with Britton as well. And for what it's worth, I would listen to the long version of the backstory of the podcast naming origin. So if that ever comes out, I'll be listener number 1. So it's food for thought. But thanks for having me back, Paul.
Yeah, not a problem, man. Not a problem. And Nathan, you follow Nathan at NBakerNGB. That's at NBakerNGB. And check out his work at sportsethos.com. He's got a lot of lovely stuff coming out on the draft guide coming up. You want to talk a little bit about your you have a punt article coming out.
Yes, actually a punt article that I am about 90% of the way through writing, which so we've done sleepers, which are obviously anywhere from mid-round to late-round guys that we like the value of. But that kind of omits the real deep leagues, or maybe AL or NL only leagues, or I've seen on occasions people do division only leagues, guys whose ADP are beyond 500. You're not even going to think about these guys in your shallow leagues, but in the 16 teamers or league only ones, guys that could really have that big upside just to take a punt on late round draft pick, waiver wire pickups, but that have the upside to be stars or impact players, at least on your fantasy team.
Awesome. That's crazy. People are playing division only leagues. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's sick. I love it.
I have a buddy he's a Yankees writer, and he's got an AL East only league with his buddies. No money, of course, because they work in baseball, but they got a fantasy and an AL East only league. So, and obviously there you're drafting like bench players, like the guys that get shuttled on the Tampa Bay Rays, AAA to Major League Pipeline. Those guys are getting drafted. So couldn't be me, but that people do it. So,
I mean, maybe we'll talk about that at Sports Ethos. That sounds interesting. I would love to possibly do that. So right on, man. So let's dive into the conversation. Before we get to the mock draft, a trade dropped today really quickly. Well, not quickly, but it happened just before the podcast a couple hours ago. Brendan Donovan going to the Mariners in exchange for some prospects. Britton, let's start with you. What is the fantasy fallout for you from this trade?
I think it's going to be, hey, welcome to the league, JJ Weatherholt. I think he's going to compete for the job in spring training, that second base job for St. Louis. Now, they do have Thomas Sagasi there on the roster. He played pretty well last year. They like him. I know the organization really likes Thomas Sagasi. So I think it's going to be a battle between them for the starting second base everyday role. And I think I would give the edge to Sagasi a little bit, because they don't have to put JJ Weatherholt on the active roster. They don't have to. He may just win the job, and that's that. But another interesting thing, now that we're on the Cardinals, I read a report on X, and if it's on X, it's true, right? Everything's true. And I did read that Lars Nootbaar may not be ready for opening day. So there could be a whole lot of playing time that's opening up in St. Louis. So that's one spring training you definitely want to keep an eye on, because that would mean if Lars Nootbaar starts the year on IL, that would also mean Nathan Church gets a bump possibly in playing time, and Joshua Baez, their super stud outfielder in Double-A, who they love, power hitter, he may be competing for a little job too. We'll see. So yeah, a lot of exciting things in St. Louis. Hopefully they'll let the young guys play.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be their play. Nathan, what do you think about this?
Well, I couldn't agree more on Weatherholt, although I'd like to see him start the season in the majors. I mean, they're balancing here the service time manipulation incentive of getting that extra year of control by waiting past Super 2, or by trying to get that draft pick and say he's obviously consensus top 100 guy, top 10 guy in some cases. So there is that draft pick incentive if he wins Rookie of the Year, if they call him up right away. I think Sagasi's got the edge on terms of the experience. He's more progressed. They definitely could keep both. But honestly, for me, the biggest interest is Jurangelo Cinche, who was recently reported to be throwing from the right side only, where he throws a little bit harder. Cinche, of course, a switch pitcher. But I want to see what the Cardinals do with him. That was a report from yesterday that the Mariners were going to have him throw righty only. So is he going to be a lefty-righty guy again now that he's with the Cardinals? Or are they going to go and accelerate him from the right side? If they do, he could be in the big leagues as soon as May if he's a right-handed pitcher only.
Your pronunciation of that name was so effing great. I don't think anyone, if you read that name on a piece of paper, you're like, oh my God, but he nailed it. Kudos.
Yeah, man. I was just trying to look up the pronunciation on the Baseball Reference pronunciation page, and it's not on there. And so I was kind of like, I hope one of them knows how to say it because I was trying to come up with all these different potential ways. So thank you, Nathan. I really appreciate that because I very much was like, because I think you're right as a right-hander. Sagente, is that how you said it?
Cincha it's a tough one, but
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, he has, what I read because I wrote the blurb right before the podcast started here. It does look like he's trending toward being right-handed only because he loses a tick or two on the fastball. The sweeper pitch doesn't have as much sweep to it from the left-hand side, and so he is a better pitcher from the right-hand side. And he allowed a 296 batting average against lefties as a lefty in the minor leagues. That's all per Baseball America. So, so I definitely see like he's trending in that direction. An interesting thought though, if he is a switch pitcher and he's going up against a switch hitter, do they have to like announce what side they want to be on before the at bat? Like, is this like a football situation where you have to like announce that you're an eligible receiver because they're, or you just sit there and play the game of like put the glove on one hand, the other hand, they keep walking back and forth on the batter's box type of thing. I wondered how that would work.
So they actually did have this happen with Pat Venditti, who is a switch pitcher in the minor leagues. And the declaration is that the pitcher has to declare when the at bat starts which side they're going to pitch from. So the advantage goes to the switch hitter, which of course in Cincha's case would likely lead to him facing a lot of switch hitters from the right side. But there is that game of chess. If you have a switch hitter, say like a Tommy Edman, who's much better as a right-handed batter, do you maybe pitch from your weaker side? Or try and influence the hitter to hit from their weaker side, or do you just go with your strength and let the hitter hit from his strength? There is a bit of a mind game to it that we could see from a fun perspective. I'd like to see from a fantasy perspective. Maybe you just pitch from the right side and get to the big ones.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And for me, for the value of Brendan Donovan, I think it pushes them up to at least the back end of 12-team drafts, in my opinion. He needs to be able to get counting stats to buoy the fact that he doesn't have a lot of homers or steals, especially going to Seattle. Any kind of power potential is kind of now. But, I think that he is someone that's a great hit tool, going to get on base a lot, going to be batting in front of Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh, going to score a lot of runs. I know he's not someone I'm pushing in like top 200 or something, but if I'm in a 12-team league and I need a middle infielder at the very near the end of my draft and Brendan Donovan's sitting there, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think it's a solid floor play to get some depth if your team needs it. So I think it is a bump to his value.
And batting average too. He's always been a good batting average player. Batting average is tough these days.
Yeah.
It's like the league average is like 245 or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
no, you get someone like that, then you really help Bowie, especially pair him with like a Yandy Diaz in the middle round draft, that was one of my middle round picks. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. That could really help boost your team. So, all right, man. Y'all have anything else to add on to the trade before we get to the mock?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, guys. So we did a mock draft on last Monday, January 26th. And just to give the listeners a rundown of the settings of the typical 5x5 mixed team or mixed leagues, 12 teams, traditional 5x5 categories, roto, not head to head, and there was a 1 IR slot in the settings for this mock draft to give a little extra, flexibility on the draft strategy here. So Britton, we'll start with rounds 1 and 2. Britton, who are your first 2 picks?
I drafted fourth, and I drafted Bobby Witt Jr. And so that was my first mistake. I'm sure you are like, what? How is drafting Bobby Witt Jr. a mistake? Okay, it's not a mistake. You can't really go wrong with the first 7 players, however you want to do it. Ohtani, Soto, Judge, Carroll, whatever. But as the draft went through, and this is why it's so great to do mock drafts, is that you get a feel for the draft pool of the players. Is I wish I had drafted Jose Ramirez in the 4th slot, and this is why, because as the draft went on, I mean, it is a precipitous, I hope I'm using that word right, I don't actually know what it means, but it is a precipitous drop from Jose Ramirez, Junior Caminero, Manny Machado, and then everybody else. There's Like Austin Riley is scary. He hasn't been good in 2 years. Like Bregman's got a new home, and I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah.
Mikhail Garcia ended the season hurt. Now, we did have some news on Eugenio Suarez. That's a big deal. He's going back to Cincinnati, where he played for like 7 seasons. So he's a player that you can get later with some upside. But I think like if you're drafting 5th, 6th, somewhere in that neighborhood, 4th, I love drafting Jose Ramirez, because drafting him immediately puts you at an advantage over everybody else that didn't draft Caminero or Machado. Everybody else at third base, at least. What do y'all think?
I mean, that shortstop pool is filled with talent, and I get where you're coming from. I actually kind of liked the Witt pick, and I think it really depends on where you view the likelihood of him hitting his ceiling this year, because Witt is a guy that, the best version of J-Ram, who is as consistent as it gets, like 880 OPS guy. He's a prime 30-30 candidate, obviously elite fantasy player. But if Witt ends up being a 930, 940 OPS guy and ends up hitting 10 more homers with the fences brought in and the triples maybe don't take a huge hit, still obviously a big base stealing threat, that the difference between him and the other shortstops, even from the floor and the ceiling, I think justify actually taking Witt there. But of course, there's concerns with Caminero back at the Trop. Is he going to be able to reproduce what he did last year at Steinbrenner Field? And then Machado, of course, is a pretty safe bet, but he's no J-Ram. So I get the argument both ways. But honestly, I would have done just as you did if I were in that position.
Well, I appreciate that. But I think my thing was like how the draft played out. I wish I'd taken J-Ram at 4 and then Zach Neto in the 3rd round, because Zach Neto, like Steamer and all of them have him as a 30-30 guy, which with some upside. So that it's just it's that thing about drafting. Like, okay, if I take this player here, then I don't take that player there. Or you remember those nutrition books that used to say eat this, not that. And that's kind of the game we all play when we're mock drafting. But my 2nd round pick was Kyle Schwarber, who last year he hit 56 home runs, and he's re-signed with the Phillies. There's no you look at all his hard hit metrics, it's all blood red. Like there's no he looks like Big Papi in his prime, essentially. And if you're into gambling, and I am, and I love to gamble. And in Tennessee, our state legislator said it's okay to gamble. So, all right, then let's do this. So his home run over at FanDuel is over 41.5 at -120. So you pay a little bit of juice. 41.5. I like that over. He hit 56 last year. And nothing's changed. He's a year older, but who cares? He's in his prime. He's a DH. He's going to slug. That's what they paid him for. And this is Narrative Street, but he's also like a team captain. Like, he's a good guy. He's not the type of guy that, like Anthony Rendon, that's going to get a $500 million contract and then just coast down easy street. That's not who Kyle Schwarber is. So I like that on FanDuel. Go take that 41.5 over. Because the other year he hit 49. Like, he hits this over all the time. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, especially on the betting odds there for Schwarber. Yeah, there's 2 straight years of hitting that number, and they go down to 41.5. Seems like a pretty good bet, and I think it's a great draft pick as well. For me, I typically don't play the position tier game this early in draft. I want a 2nd round value with my 2nd round pick, and Kyle Schwarber is most definitely that. And so, yeah, he might be U2 only, but that's fine. You're getting that value there anyways, and so I love the pick there, and I love the betting call as well.
And when you compare,
sorry, Britton, but when you compare Schwarber's aging profile and how he compares to the other older DHs, there's no reason to believe that he should face any sort of drop off. The SWIFT rates are obviously not ideal, but it's not close to that cliff, that high 30s, 40s cliff that you generally see guys like fall off at. We saw Nelson Cruz rake until he was 40. I don't see a reason why Schwarber is going to drop off anytime soon. And I think some of the narrative there is a collective. Well, the Phillies are old. The Phillies have all these old guys. They're going to drop off as a team. But it makes no sense to look at it that way. You've got to look at it at an individual level. And Schwarber over 41.5. Again, if you feel so inclined to go into the sports gambling world, I think it is a no-brainer. So,
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Nathan, let's move on to your first two picks. Who'd you got?
Sure. So I was picking 10th overall, and I really am not a fan of taking a starting pitcher in the first round. I am a believer in that gospel, but I took Paul Skeens anyway. And my view was that there were 7 or 8 position players that I'd be really happy with in the first round, and I didn't get any of them. The last one that could have fallen to me was Ellie De La Cruz, who got picked at 9. So my choices at this point were, well, I could go with Skeens where he was. I was thinking about Gunnar Henderson, who you end up selecting. But I figured I kind of had an idea as to who I wanted my second round pick to be. And I figured that I could get the package of those 2 players where I was at 10 on the wraparound. So I took Skeens with the idea that, okay, I've got a position player in mind. I liked the value of Fernando Tatis Jr. in particular. Truthfully, I would have taken Kyle Tucker over him had you not taken him off of me as well, but I was happy with Tatis as well. So that was my thinking is I was going ideally with one of those 2. I would have taken both over J-Rod and Skeens as my almost second round, trying to justify it in my head to make that nonsensical logic of, well, I can't take a starter in the first round. So hence why I went with Skeens.
Yeah, there's only a couple pitchers I would see drafting in the first round, and it's Skeens, Crochet, and Skubal. And so I don't have too much of a pushback there. Just personally, for me, I especially in a 12-team setup, I am kind of against taking a starting pitcher, even if it's a Skeens or a Crochet, just because, as I didn't take my first pitcher till round, 6, 7. Oh shit, I said 6, 7. But but I get it though. I mean, like, especially if the pocket aces strategy, if you would have went with that, is one that I've kind of wanted to experiment with, and so I kind of see how that, because I've never done it in a real league. I've done it in a couple mocks to see what happens. So maybe in another mock I might try that. But at the end of the day, in a 12-team league, I'm going to stick to that gospel, as you say, and I'm going to avoid the starting pitcher in the first round.
I love the pick. I've come around to the pocket aces, logic, which is you take an ace in the first round and an ace in the second round. And with Skeens, Skubal, and Crochet, those are 200 inning, 200 plus Ks that in the way they stabilize your ERA and WHIP, for the rest of the year is so valuable. So if you get a bad start from, I don't know, Carlos Rodon, 6 earned run in 3 innings, well, the next time Skeens, starts, he's just going to clean that up, and that's so valuable. Now, that's those 3 guys. I'm not sure, back when maybe Garrett Cole and Shane Bieber were back in their prime or something like that, but I think those 3 guys, Crochet, Skeens, and Skubal, you can definitely make a good case at the back end of a 12-team, pick 8, 9, 10, whatever, that picking one of those players is extremely valuable, because then you can just load up on hitting, after that and just kind of cruise for a little while.
All right. I totally understand it. Nathan, who was your second pick in the second round pick?
Sure. So that led me to the position player I had in mind, and Gunnar Henderson. You took, not to spoil too much, but my hope was to get Kyle Tucker. I ended up with Fernando Tatis Jr. I got Tatis in plenty of leagues last year, and my thought there is that the upside really hasn't been reached, and the floor is still really high. He at worst is like an 800 OPS guy who's going to get you close to 30-30. I think he can steal a lot more bases, but he's kind of gotten in this mental rut the last couple of years at various points in the season where he's had rough stretches that have really cost his overall line at the end of the year. But I buy him as a potential first-round talent, Tatis. Obviously not quite as high of a regular performance as you'd like for someone that you're taking in the first round. But I think he can genuinely be a superstar. The batted ball metrics are still great. The chase rate is not as bad as people make it out to be. Now I'm all in on him again this year. I'm really happy with that pick.
Yeah, especially in the second round for me.
Yeah, I mean look. My justification here is, well, from using your logic, and I know Britton disagrees, and I definitely hear both sides of it depending on the league format. But Skeens, an ace starter and a big first round upside bat after the first 2 rounds is a good enough justification for me to feel good about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. So my first 2 picks, like you said, I began with Gunnar Henderson. My second round pick was Kyle Tucker. Now that I've had about a week or so to let that simmer, I might have next time around might flip that. Might go with Kyle Tucker at the end of the first round and go with Gunnar in the beginning of the second round. Just because I'm a little more safe with Kyle Tucker, a little more of a track record of his type of production, batting in LA. I think we might be splitting hairs a little bit with these two. But at the end of the day, I think I might go with Kyle Tucker instead of Gunnar Henderson here at the back end of the first round. But look, with Gunnar Henderson, his problem last year was the barrel rate. The hard hit rate and the exit velocities were all there, and the barrel rate dropped down to 8.5%, looking like an outlier considering he was at 11% plus the first 2 years. He confessed up to this shoulder impingement injury recently, and I think it makes sense. Typically, I don't listen to players when they talk about their injury. I just take it with a massive grain of salt. However, when it's backed up with the data, I kind of can see it because it's not like we also saw a drop off in hard hit or average exit velocity. Those numbers were still there. It was just his ability to barrel it up. I think he's going to get back to barreling it up. I think we're getting back to 25 plus homers to go with great steals, a good batting average. That Baltimore lineup is loaded. So RBI run opportunity galore for Henderson. And so I love Henderson at the back end of the first or the beginning of the second, and then Kyle Tucker, of course, is Kyle Tucker. He does have the injury concerns, but I think he has a long enough history of being healthy for him to, for me to have enough confidence to take him, especially when he's no longer like an early first round pick. He's now a later first round, early second round kind of dude. It makes me feel a little better about taking that discount and getting someone who could legitimately be one of the top 3 or 4 hitters in fantasy. So I'm very happy with both of my picks. Any other thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Tucker could not have landed in a better spot, literally. The World Series champion Dodgers getting in that lineup increases his already great value. So getting him in the second round is great.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Let's move on to rounds 3 and 4. Brenton, we'll begin with you. Who are your first 2, or your third and fourth round pick?
All right, in the third round, I picked Christopher Sanchez as my SP1. I think he is right below the top 3 that we talked about, Skubal, Skeens, and Crochet. I think Christopher Sanchez for the Philadelphia Phillies is right there. You look at his StatCast page, everything clicks, everything looks great. He had a great season last year. So I don't belabor it. I think he's one of the best starting pitchers that you can get. I think he's a first round starting pitcher you can get in the third round. So I really like Christopher Sanchez.
Yep.
And my fourth round pick is just a flat out mistake. Sometimes in life you just make mistakes, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what happened, but yeah. So I picked Jacob deGrom in the fourth round, which I wish I did. And I wish I picked another outfielder like Wyatt Langford was picked that round. Brent Rooker, who I love, hitting 40 home runs at that AAA ballpark in Sacramento. I wish I had done that because there were some decent pitchers later that I really like. So I didn't need to reach for deGrom there. I wish I didn't, but I did. It happens.
Right. Right. The only pushback I have is on Chris Sanchez. I have him a little lower on my ranks, mainly because his strikeout rate was 26% last year, which is solid. But the year before that, it was 20%. I know we've seen better whiffs on, I believe, the changeup came around a little bit last year. But for me to draft someone in the top 4 or 5, passing up on dudes that have legitimate 30% strikeout upside, makes it a little bit more difficult for me to draft Chris Sanchez at 4. I don't have him too much per down. It's not like a major fade for me. It's not like someone I'm like, I'm not touching a Sanchez. But for me, I don't have him that high. I have him at number 10. Is where I have him. He's definitely an SP1. He's definitely someone that if I wind up as him as my first starting pitcher selection, I'm totally fine with it. I don't know if I trust the strikeout upside to be enough to justify him as like an SP4, SP5 kind of dude. And then I also think you're right with DeGrom there. As a baseball fan, I'm hoping DeGrom is healthy again. I'm hoping he's able to rock and roll and be the amazing pitcher we know he is. But in terms of my fantasy squad, I don't know if I can trust that, especially as early as he's going. So yeah, that's where I'm at on there. Nathan, what are your thoughts on these picks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on Sanchez. I like the fact that the trajectory arrow is pointed up with him, that the velocity is increasing year on year. His stuff keeps getting better. If you listen to hitter testimonials of facing Sanchez, especially lefties, they'll tell you it's murder, and he doesn't really even have a good slider. It's a sinker changeup, and they'll tell you it's murder to hit against them. My two concerns with Sanchez are I'm not concerned about the volume, but I am concerned about the ABS system with him in particular. I had been toying around with some of the zoning for various pitchers and catchers to see which pitchers might be getting the benefit of some borderline calls. And Sanchez, especially inside to right-handed hitters, has gotten an inordinate amount of off the edge type of shadow zone strike calls with his sinker inside to righties that I think really changes some at bats. And obviously, we'll see how impactful ABS is against starters. I'm sure teams will be hesitant to use their challenges early in games, and they're not going to be peppering a challenge every time a righty takes a sinker 2 inches off the plate. But he had such a high percentage of those shadow zone sinkers called strikes that I wonder if that's taken away from him, how that affects the way he goes after people, given that it is mostly a 2.5 pitch mix. But his velocity is improving every year. So I think even if he's forced to come in the zone, there's still upside in terms of the volume. I'm just not so sure the strikeouts quite get there to justify a third rounder. I mean, DeGrom, hey, if my magic 8 ball tells me that he's healthy the entire year, then obviously the 4th round's a steal, but it is an element of the way we viewed Mike Trout for a number of years where it's like, oh, if he can just stay on the field, this is an elite asset. And I think it is, especially a year now removed from Tommy John. There's no reason he can't have a Cy Young caliber season other than the fact that he's struggled to stay on the field. And that's why in an ideal world, I'm looking at him a couple rounds further back. But there is a world in which you're thrilled about those 2 picks for sure. Just probably not the best value. As much as as a Met fan, I'd love to say it's great value, but just objectively not quite there.
Yeah, totally fair, man. I had my DeGrom love Google glasses on, Yeah. There's no doubt about that. Jacob DeGrom, especially with the Mets, was my favorite pitcher ever to watch. Ever. Oh, yeah. So yeah, there's definitely that factored into it, definitely.
Gotcha. The one thing I wanted to ask you, Britton, before we move on, do you have a rebuttal to us kind of taking a different take on Sanchez? You have a rebuttal to what we have. The AB stuff was really interesting. I never thought about it like that. So, anyways, well, what are your thoughts on our little pushback on Sanchez?
That's a really good. I mean, those are really good points. I watched a lot of Christopher Sanchez last year. Like watched him in games, and so I think that's basically what I saw was a great pitcher. Mm-hmm. I saw a pitcher, especially I don't know if there's like any metrics to back this, but left-handed pitchers like came out in full force this past year, and then you go to a Statcast page, and it is blood red. Let me see. I don't know if y'all will let me do this, but can I share my screen right here? I know this could get risky. Let me see. And I'll try to show you what I'm talking about.
It's an uncharted territory here. I'm not going to have a guest and share a screen. I'd love to see how it turns out.
All right, let's see. Hang on.
Huh?
We'll see if the StatCast gods are with us at this moment.
Yeah, right.
They are.
Are they smile upon us or not?
Okay, hold on. I promise I won't bore you anymore with this. Do y'all see anything?
Negative.
Okay.
But what describe what you're seeing?
Anyway,
what are the stats you're seeing?
Darn it! I got so excited there. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to share a screen. It's going to be so impressive." No, that's not what happened. All right. So anyway, his StatCast page, which is like the sabermetrics, right? Mm-hmm. It's all blood lit. His xERA is 302 in the 88th percentile. His chase rate, whiff rate, K rate, walk rate, barrel rate, ground ball, and extension are all elite. Like elite, not good, elite. And he pitched 200 innings with 212 Ks. After 200 innings, his whip was 106. All right. His ERA was 2.5. 200 innings with 212 Ks with a 2.5 ERA and a 106 whip. That's ace. And I hear you. But all the metrics, like under the hood, back it up that this is all legitimate. It's not a fluke or anything like that. And but that's a great point about ABS. How do y'all feel about that? I'm all for it. I'm like, yeah, let's bring in the technology. We'll do robo umps for all I care. Let's just get it right. Hey, Paul, what do you think? Are you down with the ABS, or are you like, oh, just let the refs call it, be done with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for advancement. It's called progression, and that word has been like taboo for old school baseball heads. People going kicking and screaming into the pitch clock, and I think I think that's worked out pretty well. The pace of the game has gone up. I am secretly in the closet fan of the ghost runners, extra innings, but that's a totally separate story. So, but I do like it. If it's really frustrating when you're one call in baseball especially can change the entire game. You finally break through on a pitcher, you get the bases loaded, you get the 2 outs, and a batter has a great eye and sees that it's a ball, but it's called a strike, and it changes the whole momentum of the game, and it shouldn't. And so I am very much in favor of ABS.
Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat. If anything, my only criticism is maybe I'd like to see an extra challenge or 2 added. But I don't mind the starting point at the lower end, and maybe as it becomes more familiar to hitters. The idea here is you don't want hitters challenging every close pitch because there is an element of human error. But for that huge, crucial moment, if you're smart about your challenges, you can have that to dispute a big call. But I think it's going to really bring out most teams from the interviews that I've come through are going to allow the license for challenging to be for their handful of superstar players, if they exist, and the catchers. So it's really going to be up to the catchers. And generally speaking, you'd figure out, veteran catcher, is going to know the strike zone better. The young guys are really the ones that are having the advantage here because they've played in AAA with ABS for a couple of seasons. So they know that this pitch, which it's been a strike for 100 years, that right on right fastball on the outside corner that you always see get taken for strike 3 and the hitter never complains and it's technically 0.7 inches outside. Well, that pitch is not one you want to challenge on. And maybe that up and in riding fastball or the backup slider that lands at the top of the zone is the one that more frequently gets incorrectly called a ball. So I'm excited, honestly, to see how it works. I don't know that it's going to be that seamless because I'm sure you'll see some hitters get really angry when that top of the zone strike that's never been called is called, and they're going to go nuts at the computer. But it'll be a fun one, at least, to see the implementation.
Remember that ump that got every call wrong to the point where they forced him? Was his name Angel Rodriguez or something like that?
Angel Hernandez.
Yeah. Like if the ABS system were used during his reign, every other pitch would be like, hey, yeah, right, yeah, no.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Angel Hernandez has been a thorn in baseball players' sides in forever. I mean, I remember I don't know why I remember this, but old Astros pitcher named Wandy Rodriguez was fuming at Angel Hernandez in the game. That's where I learned the name Angel Hernandez, because the announcers were constantly talking about how he always wears an emotion on his sleeve kind of guy. And so you could tell he was super upset. And he was a guy who relied on his high fastball to set up his curveball. And so if he wasn't getting that strike, it wasn't going to go well for him. And he was incredibly frustrated. So I know all about Angel Hernandez. I really do. Right on, man. So let's move on to you, Nathan. Your rounds 3 and 4 picks. Who were they, and why'd you do that?
Sure. So the round 3 pick, which I know is a bit of a kind of discussed one of sorts, a bit of an outlier. I reached a little bit on ADP, and I took Roman Anthony. And for me, the calculus was that I was going to take a position player. I'm not quite as bullish on Zach Neto as I am as I know some other people are. And past Roman Anthony, I'm thinking, okay, well, I prefer Anthony to Wyatt Langford. The plate discipline's just so good, and he was so good in that period of time. I prefer him to Yordan Alvarez because of the injury issues just on the surface of things. And when it comes to the first base options, Rafael Devers, Bryce Harper, who are in that range, there's definitely superstar upside, but I don't think the floor is all that much lower. So I went with Anthony because I think he genuinely has like down ballot MVP upside. And I don't think the floor is that low because of how good his swing decisions were at the major league level last year. So even if he isn't necessarily, even if the swing and miss in the zone is not ideal, I think he should still at least carry a respectable on base. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of my 4th round pick in Bryce Terang. I took him because of that drop off with second baseman. But truthfully, if the draft had gone to my liking, I would have been able to get Ketel Marte maybe a little bit later than I had anticipated, and then been able to go elsewhere. That would have been a dream scenario. Would have been like Ketel in the 3rd. But as it turned out, not the worst pick in the world. I just don't think Terang I think there's a lot more room to regress than there is for progression with Terang. It's not a guy who's sustained great exit velocities for his career. He sacrificed some swing and miss last year for some improved exit velos, which I don't know if it's the best long-term possibility, but there is a world in which he continues to improve and brings the two together and is, a 300 hitter with 20 bombs. I personally, if I had the draft back again, is one that I'd like to have a do-over.
Yeah, no, I feel you. And like, I love Roman Anthony. I really do. He's one of my guys I've talked about in the podcast before. I even saw you a message on the chat. I was like, man, you reached for Roman Anthony already. Like, holy crap. And so I will say this though, if I have to reach for Roman Anthony that early, I don't know if I'm doing that. I love him. I do. He's last time I saw he was going outside pick 50 in NFBC drafts, and so I very much am in on him more closer to inside the top 50, maybe top 40 or so. But this here round 3, let's see, what was it, round like 30th pick or so here. I would rather wait to at least round 4, around pick 40 or so for Roman Anthony. I know we're kind of splitting hairs here. And then Bryce Terang. One thing about Terang, and I'll pass over to you, Britton, to get your thoughts, is he hit 10 home runs in 1 month last year. That is 33% of his career home run total came in 1 month, and that barrel rate was 15%. I cannot buy that. I cannot buy a 1 month major jump in barrel rate. Like 3 or 4 of the months were his normal, very subpar barrels. So I cannot buy the power with Terang. The success rate on the stolen bases were not great. He's going to be batting. He's going to be on first base with the Brewers' best hitters in the box, which means I don't know if they're going to be as aggressive with him on the base pass to make up for the power that I don't think is going to be there. So I personally, Terang is one of my big fades this year. Britton, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think Roman Anthony is really, really exciting.
Yeah.
But typically, if he bats leadoff for the Boston Red Sox all year, the moon and the stars. But his projections with Oopsie, ATC, Steamer, the bat, 15 home runs and 8 stolen bases, which there's nothing wrong with that. But it looks like they're going to his playing time is 111 games. I don't know if they're putting in some injury stuff into there or not, but yeah, I mean, he's exciting, no doubt. Kind of like Acuna upside. But maybe not this year. But that's the good thing about a redraft league. Like, you need to take shots, because if it doesn't work out, you drop them and you go get somebody else. But maybe not at the top of the third, or at the third, fourth round. But yeah, definitely. I mean, he's literally like, other than maybe Kevin McGonigal, he's like one of the best prospects, exciting young players in the game. I kind of like Bryce Terang. I do. I think he's going to steal a lot of bases, and I totally understand that home run streak he went on, which kind of skewered, offset his home run totals, and totally like an abnormality. But still, he's young. He's done it. I think he can do it again. And second base, I think he was the number one overall. To the player rater last year, the number one second baseman was Bryce Terang for the Brewers. But let's say you don't get Terang. Let's say you just look down. Second base gets pretty dry pretty quick. So no, I don't mind reaching on Terang there.
Yeah, that was my thought process at the time with Terang, is the positional drop off of, okay, well, I'm either putting second base to the back burner, or I'm taking Terang here. I think if I was in love with another one of the options, even a position I didn't need, I would have gone there. I really try and stay focused to greatest overall value. But the Roman Anthony hill, I'm going to die on that hill, and it's not even from his minor league production, which I do value mightily. I think it's important to look at track record. And it's not even from the major league production as much as it is just looking at his swing decisions and the fact that his whiff rate on breaking balls, even on high velocity fastballs, he was able to handle the tick up and stuff just as well as you could have dreamed of. And the results weren't perfect at first, but the process was fine. And then the results were really good, and then he got hurt. So my view here is that for a guy who chases as little as he does and impacts the ball as much as he does, I'm fine. I mean, this pick is only worth it, to be clear, if we're talking about like an 830 plus OPS guy. And I think he's going to be that guy. I mean, if he's ends up as like a 740, 750, like, 8 homers, or 15 homers, 8 steals type of guy, it's a terrible pick in the third round. That's the kind of guy you say, oh, well, maybe you should have taken the punt 4 rounds later, which I don't think I would have gotten him then. But I really do think that he's got a better chance of being that guy than Zach Neto does. And now you could have argued that maybe Devers or Harper would have been the better pick. Hell, Zach Neto's got way better projections from the homers and steals perspective. But I think Roman Anthony is the highest upside of all of them. And I'm not too worried about the floor with how good the contact metrics were. But I'm interested to hear Paul's perspective, of course, because obviously you were not going to take Anthony there. Somebody else might have. But how do you view the Zach Neto, Roman Anthony kind of back and forth at that spot, given that you were one spot behind?
Yeah, no, honestly, so my 2 picks here were Zach Neto and then Brent Rooker. And honestly, Zeto, Rooker are probably amongst the last 2 players I would take before I would then consider Roman Anthony. I have those 2 slightly up because of the track record. We saw Neto do it already. We saw him kind of come along nicely in 2024, breaking out last year, of course, after coming back from injury. And so the fact that we've seen it a little bit more is what, for me, draws them a little bit above Roman Anthony, because their ceilings are there, right? A legit five category type of guys. And so I very much am just slightly above on there. Now I will say, with my round 4 pick, if Neto and if the guy behind me would have taken Rooker, and you hadn't taken Roman Anthony, a beginning of the 4th round pick there with those guys gone, I might have probably would have gone with Roman Anthony there. But for me, I love Zach Neto, legit 5 category dude. The Angels lineup isn't all that great, but I think it's just good enough at the top where he's batting, where he's going to get enough run and RBI opportunities. And you know what? The Angels are a team that, frustrating for Angel fans, but they're one foot in, 1 foot out in terms of contention. I think they see Mike Trout and think they still have a chance, and so they haven't been sellers, so they're not going to degrade their lineup at the deadline. So I think that we're looking at a pretty steady production of runs and RBIs. The steals and home runs are there, and for me, I early in the draft in 12-team leagues, I want as many 5 category dudes as possible. It makes my draft later on a lot easier. I don't have to sit there and go, okay, well, I took 2 big steal guys early, so I got 2 big home run guys here, or vice versa. I could just say, all right, I'm getting home runs, steals, runs, RBI, solid average. That's not going to tank me, and I'm going to get those things. And Brent Rooker is, I know he doesn't get the steals, but we're talking, like you mentioned, he's in that AAA ballpark with all those homers. The athletic lineup is amazing. So you got a lot of runs, a lot of RBI. He was 90-90 last year in runs and RBI. And I think he'd be even better this year. The athletics lineup is only going to get better with those young guys developing. And so I love Brent Rooker this year. So him and Neto here kind of continues my, making sure I get multiple production in multiple categories from our early round picks.
I love those 2 picks.
So and I think it might be a classic case of in a categories league, Neto is the clear winner, and in a points league, Roman Anthony's the clear winner, because of course those that pitch selection and the on base percentage and the lesser strikeouts are not going to hurt Neto, and they're not going to help Anthony as much. So it gives some more credence to that. But go ahead, Britton. Sorry about that.
No, it's totally great. It's funny, we're talking about Roman Anthony, just how talented he is, but looking at his projections, they're not as high as you think they would be or should be. Just the nature of those systems and what they look at and what they value. But when they do value Nick Kurtz, which we didn't talk about him because none of us drafted him, but he got drafted in the 2nd round, a first baseman drafted in the 2nd round before Pete Alonso, before Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Holy moly, that's a giant leap. And I love Nick Kurtz. He's on one of my Auto-New dynasty leagues. Nick Kurtz for the Athletics. Obviously he was awesome. I'm not sure I've ever seen a rookie season like he banged out last year. But I went to FanDuel when I was looking at it, and to Paul, you first, and then Nathan, you too. Take a guess what his over/under home runs are at FanDuel.
Probably. I would probably say, so you said Schwarber was 41.5, so probably a little lower than that, so maybe like 37.
Nathan, what do you think?
I'm going to go lower. I'm going to say a lot of these betting line projections on first or second year players are a little more conservative. I'm going to say 31.5.
It's 37.5. The Nick Kurtz is 37.5 over under at FanDuel, and that is shocking to me because Nick Kurtz is great. He's obviously had a great second half of the season. He had a rough month there at the beginning, and even with his great season, he still had a 30% K rate. But 38 home runs in your second year, man, that's asking a lot, isn't it? Like, if you look at his Steamer projections, it's 31, which that's still a fantastic second season. But I hate to be the negative Nancy, and nobody likes betting unders. It's not fun. Yeah. It's like you're a cranky old man. Like, you're not gonna. Back in my day, pitchers hit. Yeah, just like, man, just like, let's move on here. But yeah, Nick Kurtz under at FanDuel 37.5, and it's almost even money too. I would have to take that under. What do y'all think?
Yeah,
Yeah,
looking at his. Oh, go ahead. So looking at his whiff rates, there's a lot of alarm for me in terms of how easy he could be pitched to in year 2. And I love watching Kurtz hit. He's one of my favorite hitters in baseball to watch hit. Like watching the left-handed hitter just scoop balls from the outside corner into the left field seats. And you're watching him hit. You're like, oh well, can of corn fly ball to left, and it's 15 rows back in left field. Obviously, you'll remember
ballpark
Paul, a
helps.
game against.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And it's the he had a game in Houston, I believe, Paul, right, where he hit 4 homers, and I think 3 of them were. One of them, I think, was against a position player, but 3 of them were to left field, like Crawford box territory. Incredible hitter to watch hit. But with the whiff rate in the strike zone as bad as it is, we're talking over 35%, which is like really bordering on untenable. There are very few hitters that can succeed in the big leagues, even with good plate discipline at that level. And I worry that, with a stretch of pitchers pitching him tough, whether he's going to entirely be able to sustain that. James Wood, I think, is a fair comparison in a lot of ways in terms of raw power, opposite field power, big, tall, left-handed hitter. And we saw what Wood can do in the first half, and then we saw the deficiencies of how he was just getting carved up inside and people were feeding him breaking balls. So I'm with you, Britton. I'm taking the under on Kurtz, and quite frankly, I can't justify taking him over Vladdy in fantasy.
Yeah, ditto. I don't have anything to add on to that. That strikeout rate scares me. The floor is just too big to go in the second round. I just can't. I'm surprised at how much that gravy train on his ADP is just so ridiculous from the beginning of draft season on. It has been way too high. And the thing is, it's not like a 30% strikeout rate, and those contact rates preclude you from having that kind of production. But for me, I need to see you do it again. You know what I mean? Because it's all too often these guys have a massive home run blow up with these poor contact rates, and then all of a sudden they drop back down to earth the next year. And so for me, with Nick Kurtz, I got to see him do it again. Now next year, if he does it again, no, he's the number 1 first baseman, and I'm taking him in the second round. But I'm not doing it this year. I can't do it that early either. So yeah, absolutely, guys, and I would take the under for sure. All right.
It's so wild. He got picked ahead of Pete. I mean, think of the track record of these sluggers: Pete Alonso, Kyle Schwarber, and Vlad. It's wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the helium. I've never seen helium on a player like this before.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really truly is, man. All right, so let's move on to rounds 5 and 6. Britton, who you take in rounds 5 and 6, and why?
All right, I took my favorite catcher at price, which is Shea Langoliers, who banged out 27 home runs last year, good average. He's staying in that little itty bitty baby park called Sutter Health Park in West Sacramento, California. He made for the past 3 years, he's made strides every single year, become a better hitter every single year, improved every single year, and in a 2-catcher league, I want a elite catcher. I don't want to be stuck with, not a great catcher with a bad average. I want to go for somebody with upside that can hit 30 home runs. And the NFBC leagues, if you look at who won their main event leagues, like 75% had Cal Raleigh on it. Now, I love Cal Raleigh too, but he's not going to hit 60 home runs again. It's like Nick Kurtz, that's just not the reality of baseball and how it works. But Shea Langoliers, you can get in the 5th round in a 2-catcher league. I love going for a great catcher first, so that's why I picked him in the 5th round, Shea Langoliers for the Athletics. My next pick was 6th round, Riley Green. I don't know why I did that. I don't like it. I don't like him either. Like, I can't even justify it. Like, before Bellinger, before Merrill. That I don't know what I was thinking there. So just ignore that one and move on. We don't need to talk about that because I think Riley Green led the league in strikeouts. Yeah, he had 35 home runs, but man, that's going to come tumbling down like a house of cards. So we don't have to talk about that too much, Nathan.
Yeah. Well, that's I really say I love the Langoliers pick. I think he's been underrated for a number of years. I actually, funnily enough, in a 2-catcher league last year, ended up getting Rowley and Langoliers, and was able to trade Langoliers later in the year. I traded him at the wrong time. I should have held him longer, but I got Rowley in the 8th round, so
That's
can't complain.
awesome.
I won the leagues, but I'm with you on Rowley. I mean, I spoke actually on the pod I recorded yesterday about this. People will draft players expecting to replace their production with the same players. And and this is applicable for fantasy and it's applicable for baseball in real life, where you'll say, okay, well, the Mariners were great and they're part of the reason why is Cal Raleigh, and Cal Raleigh's still there. So why can't they be great again? And I do think the Mariners are a great team, but you can't expect to replace that 60 home run production with Raleigh himself. There's really, Judge, and you could say to an extent Ohtani, Soto, whatever, but that's not a replicable production. Obviously it works both ways. There's guys that underperform that will improve. But I think Langoliers is about as good of a value as you're going to get for that level of catcher in that lineup as you could possibly get. And Riley Green, it's not the worst pick in the world, but there's a decent few outfielders I would have taken ahead of him, which obviously I don't need to harp on. But there's a world in which he fixes the strikeout rate somewhat and continues to rake. But obviously, I really do like the Langoliers pick.
Yeah, and it was interesting enough for me. I believe it was my TGFBI league last year. Someone dropped Langoliers. I think he got hurt or something, and someone dropped him. And I bid, I think, like $200 to get him on my team, and that was a league that I finished second overall in the hitting categories, but like more toward the bottom of pitching. And I was just like, God damn it! If I would have just had a better pitching staff, it would have been fine. But Langoliers is the big reason why. And I was able to really shore up my homers with him. And so I love Langoliers, man. I remember specifically, I had him in my queue for that round, and I saw you take him, Britton. I'm like, damn you. So, you kind of sunk my battleship there, man. And I won't pile on to the Riley Green show here. Yeah, there's some other outfielders I would have taken over him. So let's move on to you, Nathan, on your rounds 5 and 6 pick. Who you got?
Well, honestly, I did get sniped a couple times, like repeatedly in the rounds 5 and 6. So my initial plan, Ben Rice was in my I had Ben Rice in my head, as in like, okay, I'll take him. I should be able to get him round 5. His ADP's low enough that I should have been. It's risen actually in the last couple of weeks. And of course, Ben Rice gets taken at 5-6. And then the reason I wanted Rice is simple. It's the combination of the volume. I think he'll play every day at first base for the Yankees. And I think he can be a top bat. Like, I think we can be looking at, I think the average will be respectable. I think you can get 30 home runs from Rice. The RBIs will be there. But I didn't get him. And then I was going to take Freddie Freeman. And then Jeff took him right ahead of me. So I ended up with Blake Snell, which especially now is regrettable because he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. Obviously, yes, extra workload in the postseason, but he missed a lot of time, so kind of disappointed that's the case. Obviously, Snell is the classic. When he's on the field, you're going to get elite strikeout rates. It's usually good damage control, but he'll have those stretches where he's like randomly at an 80 ERA for a month, like inexplicably. He can't get the ball over the plate. So truthfully, in hindsight, this is a pick I definitely wouldn't have made again. Even with the circumstances, I still wouldn't have made, but especially now that we know that he's not going to be ready for the regular season or may not be ready for the regular season. It's just a terrible pick. The next one, I wanted Spencer Schwellenbach, and I had that one lined up, and I thought, oh, well, I'm going to get him. And in hindsight, I screwed it up because I should have taken Schwellenbach ahead of him and obviously got sniped, which we'll talk about momentarily. But I was okay with Joe Ryan. I actually slightly prefer Joe Ryan to Freddie Peralta, which I think is a slightly hot take. I got crucified actually for taking Joe Ryan in both a number of real leagues and a couple of mocks. I think of those mocks, I was criticized for taking Ryan, or not criticized, but questioned, I suppose, for taking Ryan as high as they did, and it paid off there. I'm a big believer in his fastball, and his stuff tunnels so well off of that fastball. it all stays in the same slot for so long, and the results reflect that. So I'm happy with Ryan as the consolation, but I would have much rather had a do-over, which is again why we do the mocks, and honestly ended up with the two that you picked. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how badly I screwed up, and also how well you did, because I'm a much greater fan of honestly both of your guys' fifth and sixth round outcomes than my own. Although I still take him Joe Ryan over Riley.
Heard. Well, yeah, no, I mean, you're right on Blake Snell. Won't pile onto that one. Joe Ryan, I feel like I might be a little higher on than some. I mean, I still would take Schwellenbach over him. But I like him. Consistently with 26% strikeout rate. The good ratios are there. It's a situation where you look at the swing and strike rate. It's not all that great, but the strikeout production is consistently there. So I feel a little more confident in that. But I would take Schwellenbach over him. Before we move on to my picks, Britton, you want to add on to Snell and Ryan before we move on?
Yeah, well, hindsight's 2020, and Blake Snell is a two-time Cy Young Award winner. Obviously, he's a great pitcher. But since then, obviously, the news has come out that he's maybe a little bit of an injury lingering after the postseason. But of course, we didn't know that when we were drafting all this. So, but yeah, Joe Ryan's kind of undervalued, and he's been sneaky productive these past couple years, and no injury, on the radar at all. But see, that's the beauty of when you take schemes, is that he just levels all that out. It's all going to be okay. That's why if you're on the back end of the 12, you get a player like Paul Skeens, because even if you miss like Snell, Ryan, whatever, and I think you got a major hit on McLean. I love that pitch. And I know a lot of people do too. I'm not breaking any news or anything, but yeah, you hit on a couple of those, and then you got Skeens. It's all good.
Yeah. Right on, man. So my two picks in 5 and 6 were Byron Buxton and then Schwellenbach. I think the fifth round here, at the end of the fifth round, is a great discount for Buxton. Not only to show he could be healthy last year, the skills were all there. Look at a 17% barrel, a 92 mile per hour exit velocity, good average, 25 homers, 24 steals. The talent was still there, and he was healthy, and you're getting a great discount here. So I love taking the risk on Buxton here at the end of round 5. And to open up round 6 with a second pick of round 6, I went with Schwellenbach. I love to get your thoughts on this. Maybe I'm not, I don't know. The fracture elbow injury last year doesn't scare me as much as a lot of other pitcher injuries, because it's not a ligament. It's not like he had Tommy John or UCL reconstruction or anything like that. I feel like it's not going to be as a major hamper. He's also still very young. 2 straight years of a 3.35 ERA or below, or what was it, a 1.07 WHIP or lower in 2 straight campaigns. Both seasons over 100 innings, so not necessarily a small sample. He had the stuff plus grade on 4 of his offerings of 107 or better, a 30% whiff rate on 3 of those offerings. So I think he's the guy. He's currently hovering around 25%. I can easily see him push 28, 29% on the strikeout rate. He already has a great walk rate. So I think that Spencer Schwellenbach as my SP1 in round 6. Wonderful, because I was able to get a ton of elite hitters at the top. And I think Spencer Schwellenbach is a guy who I think is going to be an SP1 next year. What are y'all's thoughts?
Schwellenbach, he was the everybody's like favorite sleeper last year. Remember, like everybody's talking about Schwellenbach, and then he got injured. But if you look at the projections for him, he's projected to pitch 166 innings for the Atlanta Braves with a 3.65 ERA. So, win 11 games. Yeah, Schwellenbach is, hopefully, if that injury thing is in the past, then, full steam ahead. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm all on board with Schwellenbach. I was one of those people that really bought high on him in last year's drafts. I took him all over the place. I mean, he was great before he got hurt, and then obviously he got hurt, as often is the case with the modern day starter. But he has legitimate ace qualities, Schwellenbach, which is not something you see in a lot of young pitchers. I do think I got that elsewhere in my draft. We'll get to in the next picks, but there aren't very many guys that come up with legitimate, complete pitch mixes, good enough to command to throw any pitch in any count. He doesn't pay a third time through tax. He actually gets better third time through, which is really important, not just from being able to save bullpens from the Braves perspective, but from a fantasy perspective. If you wonder what the difference is between a guy for those that are healthy for an entire season that throw 170 innings, say like a Freddie Peralta, who's a fantastic pitcher, obviously glad he's a Met. But the difference between a Peralta and a Schwellenbach is that Schwellenbach gets the license to go out when he's at 98 pitches and to go in the seventh inning to face the top of the order third time through because he gets better. And the teams know that, and the analytics department knows that, and they're not pulling the trigger on him. And those innings add up over time. They'll get him extra quality starts. It'll lower the ERA, and it'll get that extra 15 to 20 innings per season, which does really make a difference, especially in points leagues, but even given the quality of that volume in categories leagues as well. So I love that pick. If he wasn't gone at 6'2", he would have been gone at 6'3", and realistically, he should have been gone at 5'10" if I wasn't being an idiot. But that's why we do mocks. So
Exactly. Right on. Anything to add on before we move on to round 7-8?
No, I would just say I'm not that worried about Schwellenbach. Who I am worried about for the Braves is Spencer Strider. He never looked right last year, and as good as he was, he had a Tommy John surgery on his elbow 2019, and then a brace procedure. It wasn't like a second Tommy John, but it was still a major surgery on that same elbow in 2023. So he's had two surgeries on that elbow. Didn't look right last year. I think I'm avoiding Spencer Strider this year. What do y'all think?
Yeah, for me, I mentioned this a couple of times for Strider. I want to see if he develops like another fastball and not be so reliant on the four-seamer because that it's just not the same pitch anymore. And the slider whiff rates were still pretty good. So if he can just add another fastball type, whether it's something a little more, or maybe add a sinker, or maybe, I don't know, add something to the pitch mix so he's not just a 1-2 kind of guy, fastball slider dude, because he doesn't have that type of stuff. And I do believe in the Braves pitching development. So he is a guy who I'm watching in spring training to see if he's got any additional pitches that he's working on, or if he's still going to try and stay with the fastball slider. If he's still a fastball slider kind of dude, I will continue to be out. But if he develops something else to try to offset the downgrade on the four seam, then I might bump him up a little bit. But I'm not going to bump him up that much because it is just spring training. But it's something I'm watching for sure.
Yeah, I was alarmed when he first came back from the internal brace surgery because his fastball when he was in the big leagues pre elbow injury was always very velocity reliant. You see with some pitchers, they can throw their fastball at 97 or they throw it at 92, and the shape doesn't really take a hit. But in Strider's case, those fastballs that were below 96 really lost a lot of IVB, induced vertical break, which is obviously perceived rise. And that's really what makes him Spencer Strider, in that he uses that and then throws the slider, which is a huge velo difference off of it. And it's a huge change of eye level. And that had totally evaporated. I remember watching his start against the Blue Jays and looking at the data, and he was looking at like 15-ish inches of IVB, which is not, he would not be a successful pitcher in the big leagues. When he came back, though, from that setback, he seemingly found the shape even without the velocity. So I think there might be some world in which he learns that if he's consistent at the top of the zone, he can get away with most of the time throwing that fastball early in counts. And yeah, there will be some solo shots, but at least avoiding the major damage. But I'm interested to see whether that improved shape actually continues. And of course, he's still got to deal with, okay, I don't have 99 to 100 to set up my slider. Can he start throwing that changeup more, which has been inconsistent for him? Does he maybe throw in a curveball? You mentioned another fastball. If he could develop like a sinker or something, that would be crazy effective for a guy who's that high riding fastball from his arm slot. So I'm in the same boat as you guys, though. It's really risky to take him in this portion of the draft when you've got guys with similar upside that don't have that concern.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. All righty, let's see here. Nathan, who are your picks in round 7 and 8?
So, hey, at least I can be happy with these because I was not happy with my 5 and 6. But I'm really happy getting Eri Perez in round 7. He's got some of the best stuff in Major League Baseball. This kid is an absolute, just an incredible, incredible pitcher. He's a cerebral pitcher. He knows what he's doing on the mound, and he happens to have 100-mile-an-hour heat in his back pocket with a crazy good slider, changeup, curveball. He is a complete pitcher and just needs to stay on the field. And that's really the big caveat here is his workload's going to be managed. We don't know how good the Marlins are going to be, but may not do that well in the wins category. So there are some kind of peripheral issues. But to get a guy that could give you ace quality, even if he's not giving you ace volume or ace wins, or maybe ace health, but just the quality at that point, I'm really happy with, and I view favorably compared to the other pitchers that were taken in that area.
Awesome. So Yuri Perez is definitely someone who you're right. He has the stuff. I just want to see him limit the damage a little bit more. He's got some pretty hard hit numbers against him that I want to see him figure out before I'm super in on him. But at this price, I've got no qualms. I really don't. Britton, I realize I skipped your 7 and 8 picks, Britton, so we'll swing back around to that. But your thoughts on Yuri before we get Nathan's next pick?
Oh yeah, no worries whatsoever. No, Yuri Perez could win the Cy Young. Like he literally has that kind of stuff. Health is the issue for every single pitcher. That everybody knows that. But Yuri Perez is that kind of guy. Like, would it surprise you if he finished top 3 in Cy Young voting? It wouldn't surprise me if he did kind of a Christopher Sanchez type thing. So yeah, Yuri Perez is super talented for the Marlins, and that team is kind of on the come up. So I think that's a great pick. But I like Nathan's next round pick even more.
Yeah. Who you got? Who is that guy? The mystery guy, Nathan.
And the mystery guy is Nolan McLean, who he's a tough one to kind of wonder about draft position because his stuff on paper should be as high as any starter in the league. The only thing that's shackling him from being one of, or if not, we're talking about top 5 pitcher in baseball, is some minor command inconsistencies. And obviously the track record, he threw 48 innings in the big league. So we really shouldn't be getting ahead of ourselves in terms of putting him in that bracket. But he's got a legitimate 6-pitch mix. I mean, we see guys that throw 6 pitches, but they really rely on 2. He'll throw 6 pitches, that 5 of which are legitimately plus. The sweeper, which has got as high of a spin rate as any pitch in baseball. The curveball, like 3,200 RPMs. The break is incredible. You can look at it even just from a layman's perspective. He gets the most absurd called strike threes, the most absurd swinging strike threes, and he's able to be efficient because he induces ground balls. So he really is a complete pitcher. I love the fact that he's a converted 2-way player and he's a low mileage arm. I put a lot of value into that. Guys that can stay healthy because of the fact they haven't been taxed. A lot of pitchers, unfortunately, it's a matter of the expiration date coming where they've thrown 3 straight 200-inning seasons and maybe they've been taxed a lot in the minors and they get to the big leagues and they tear their UCL 5 starts in. But I feel pretty good about the health. I feel great about the production. Honestly, when I saw where I was going into that 7 to 8 back-to-back, I was thrilled. And this was as happy as I could have been with these 2 starters back-to-back. And McLean, yeah, I mean, would it shock? Obviously, Rookie of the Year favorite. Would it shock either of you two if he ended up in a top 5 Cy Young? Maybe not quite Yuri Perez's ceiling, but in a top 5 Cy Young conversation?
Not at all. I kind of expect it. I kind of expect
here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I'm with you on Nolan McLean. I talked about on the podcast a lot. The spin rate's there, the stuff is there. It's just a matter of what does his workload look like as his first full time starter in the majors. But I think at this draft price, it's a hell of a value. It's not like you're reaching like around 4 or 5 here. You're getting pretty close to pick 100. And Nolan McLean, I think, is a fantastic value. Brenton, who are your 2 picks at number 7 and 8?
I went with Tyler Soderstrom. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but I'm in love with the A's.
Yeah.
I want all the A's players. I love even Lawrence Butler. I think he's going to have a decent bounce back year, but I didn't draft him. But Tyler Soderstrom, I think, is a stud. Plus, he's first base and outfield eligible, which I kind of like that because it kind of frees him up a little bit. But so he's had let's see, 25 home runs, 8 stolen bases with a good average. I think that's like a base. I think that's baseline. I think it's just going to go up and up from there. I think he's one of the most talented young hitters. But Nick Kurtz gets all the spotlight, and rightfully so. You know, Nick Kurtz literally did something last year that I'm not sure any rookie has done before and may or may not will do. But, so Tyler Soderstrom was just, kind of doing his thing day in, day out. He got a big contract extension, but so the team believes in him, and he's going to be there. He's not going anywhere, and cranking home runs at that little ballpark. I really like him. And then my next pick was Augustin Ramirez, who's the catcher for Miami. I don't know why I did that. I don't know. Sometimes I do a lot of NFBC leagues where it's draft and hold, meaning there are no pickups. You draft 50 rounds, and those are your players. There's no fab. There's no trading. That's it. So I just had this thing in my mind where I have to get 2 catchers fairly early. So that's why I did that. Augustin Ramirez, he went 21 home runs, 16 stolen bases, kind of like a little JT Realmuto back in the day. He was at Miami too. Yeah, he was at Miami too. So this is like JT Realmuto part 2. So I got my 2 catchers, and then I'm just then I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, and you know what? Even a 12-team 2-catcher setup, that's still 24 of the starting 30 catchers in baseball are going to be starting in these leagues. And so that's a hell of a drop-off. That's a lot of the bottom of the barrel guys are not going to be that great. And so in my opinion, it makes a lot of sense to reach on catchers in this type of format. Nathan, what are your thoughts on those picks before we move on to mine?
Yeah, I like the Soderstrom pick, and honestly, I don't mind Augustin Ramirez. I find it interesting that you've got 2 polar opposites when it comes to a non-fantasy value, which will affect fantasy value in terms of Soderstrom, who was shockingly incredible in left field and is a better fantasy asset because of that. He's not competing for those first base DH ABs.
Yeah,
he's
he got a Gold Glove.
Yes, and he was incredible. Usually I think when Fernando Tatis went to right field, everybody kind of figured, okay, this guy is an incredible athlete, cannon arm, great speed. You figured it. But did anyone see this coming from Soderstrom being not just an adequate left field, but
yeah, he was a catcher converted to a first baseman, converted to a left fielder. That's a lot of conversions.
No.
It is. And we know he had the arm for it, but the range was impressive. And then you've got Augustin Ramirez, who it's almost incomprehensible how bad his defense was last year. Now, I think the kid can rake. He's just got to find a place to play. And if you guarantee me that he's playing 150 games, I think this pick is going to be awesome, actually. But it's just a matter of are they going to suffer with him behind the plate and just say it is what it is, and ABS will save us, and hopefully he doesn't have a gazillion pass balls, or are they going to give up on that idea and put him in a corner like first base where he might have some more competition? But I think the bat is great with Augustin Ramirez. The hit tool is unbelievable. The power is better than people give him credit for. And the reality is, if he can get a home at first base, as long as he's playing every day, then that's great catcher value. You might be able to get more volume out of Augustine than you would out of catchers in that range.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Augustin Ramirez. I really do. He's got a really good the power, speed at catcher position is great, and all that lovely stuff. And speaking of catchers, is where I got my first one here in round 7 was Drake Baldwin. I like him as my catcher one, though having to wait a little bit because I didn't really love some of the value of some of the catchers that came to me in the earlier rounds. So I did wait a little bit. That might have been my biggest mistake in this draft, not getting a bona fide catcher one. But I think Baldwin Baldwin has the upside to do that. I am a little worried about Sean Murphy whenever he comes back from injury, what the playing time is going to look like, because they are still paying him. He's still a big-time vet kind of guy. So when he comes back, I'm a little worried, which is why I don't love this pick, because I do worry about that. But in terms of the talent, in terms of who Drake Baldwin could be, he very easily could be a top 5, top 6 catcher if he gets the playing time. He's got the power. He's got the average. He's batting in a good lineup. So he checks all those boxes. Then my second pick was Saya Suzuki. Had a drop off in production in the second half of last year, but I'm not worried about it because a lot of the metrics were pretty much the same. It just kind of looked very fluky. Baseball happened to him. He's got the hard hit data and the barrel rates and stuff like that to get home runs out in Wrigley Field. So I'm not too worried about that. And for me, if once we get to this part of the draft, getting bona fide 5 category dudes is kind of not going to happen. So this is where you're kind of playing the game of, all right, so how much value can I get out of one category, and how many categories can I get out of a guy? And I think Saya Suzuki is going to be a guy that gets you batting average, runs, RBI, not batting average. Sorry, it's probably going to be like 230, 240, something like that. So I guess it won't tank you, but it's not going to be a positive, that's for sure. But 30 homers, good RBI, good batting, a solid Cub lineup. I like Saya Suzuki here, and it did taking Suzuki, and you'll see who my next catcher is later, did kind of change my strategy a little bit. But I love the value here. I think you're getting the power and the runs and the RBI that you need out of this pick. What do y'all? We'll start with you, Britton. What are your thoughts on these two options?
I love Drake Baldwin. I think he's going to be a superstar. I think he's literally the third. Okay, maybe not third, but maybe the third best hitter on the Braves. Like Acuna 1, and Olsen 2, and then Drake Baldwin. And I know Murphy, he's hurt, and I don't know how that's going to work out, but they're going to find a way to get Drake Baldwin in the lineup. I mean, his bat is too good. Rookie of the year, Drake Baldwin. I think the sky's the limit. Seiya Suzuki is just solid. He's going to hit 30 home runs probably. He's just a solid outfielder at that spot. And so yeah, especially out here in round 8. Yeah, he's solidified in that lineup. I like the Cubs. I like hitting in Wrigley Field. So yeah, I like Suzuki. What do you think, Nathan?
Well, I think it really depends on what the Braves have for as far as Baldwin goes. What the Braves are going to go into the season with that DH spot looking like, and if it's vacant, like half vacant as it is now, where they can get Baldwin into the lineup on days he's not catching, I love the pick because I think he's too good of a bat not to have in that lineup just about every day, whether he's catching or DHing. And I think that's the best reason to give him a chance to DH on the days that Sean Murphy catches. I keep hearing from those who are around the team that they love the way that Sean Murphy handles the pitching staff, and that would concern me if they got a full-time DH, that he's going to get ABs. I mean, we've seen the intangible side, the working with pitchers can carry so much weight. I mean, Paul would have seen Martin Maldonado get regular at-bats as an overall, from an objective, and I love Maldonado, but from an objective point of view, he was a terrible player on every side of the ball and still a regular catcher because of that help with the pitching staff. So I worry that Murphy could take those ABs. Suzuki, I think, is a great pick as well, though, just in that he's an uninspiring but solid option. And those guys usually fall too deep. I mean, if you compare him to O'Neal Cruz, who I actually also liked in terms of the value a couple picks prior, but the median 50th percentile outcome is a lot higher for Suzuki than it is for Cruz. But people are taking Cruz higher because, well, he could be a 30-30 guy, and he hits the ball 123 miles an hour, and he runs like the wind and throws incredibly. But Suzuki's probably your steady 30 home run outfielder, and he doesn't give you that low of a floor. So honestly, I'm happy with both of those picks, with the caveat that if the Atlanta decides to, whether it's an Ozuna reunion, who I believe Ozuna's still a free agent, correct?
Yes, he has not been signed.
So if that were to happen, I would then be a little bit more worried about Baldwin's playing time. But if that DH spot is half open, whether it's a Yastrzemski, kind of like they expect him to take some ABs, he's a better hitter than Yastrzemski, and he'll hit as the DH even when Murphy catches. which is a dream scenario. 6 starts a week for a catcher that can give you off like top 5 catcher offensive potency is a great value pick in the 7th round.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, guys. Real quick, am I coming through okay? I had to make a switch. Y'all hearing me okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Anyways, so let's move on to rounds 9 and 10. Let's get back to the order. I won't skip you this time, Britton. Where are you at on 9 and 10?
9 and 10, I picked my first in round 9. I picked my first closer, Cade Smith for the Cleveland Guardians. Not super exciting, but I really like Cade Smith, and unfortunately we know what happened with Emmanuel Clase. He's not coming back. I guess he'll go over to the KBO or something. So Cade Smith is the closer for the Guardians, and he's really elite. Looking at his StatCast page, my 10th round pick was Sonny Gray, and that was just he's solid. Every year he gets it done. I don't know how. I don't know why. But he went to Vanderbilt too, so he's from Nashville. So I was like, yeah, I'll get Sonny Gray. He's as boring as the day is long. But my favorite pick so far in this whole draft is Paul's 9th round pick. And I don't want to skip you, Nathan.
Go. Please.
Yeah. But Paul, tell us who you picked in the 9th round. I love this pick.
Mr. Emmett Sheehan with the Dodgers. Man, the strikeout upside is there. The fastball is incredible. What I love the most that he came back from injury last year, looked really good, and now he's entering the off season with a normal off season, right? And so that I love that for the health. And a sneaky thing that I like about Sheehan is that the Dodgers are playing for October, right? And so they're going to want to give Yoshi, Snell, Glasnow, Ohtani. They're going to want to preserve those guys. That means they're going to have to kind of ride some of those guys that aren't part of that big four. And I think that's going to be Emmett Sheehan. I think that he's a guy that can lead the Dodgers in innings this year because they're going to want to. They would rather ride him, right, and then save their big four for the playoffs and just ride Sheehan. And then come playoff time, like, all right, Sheehan, you did your part. Move him to the bullpen during the playoffs and ride their big four in October. And so I think that's a sneaky part of his value and why I really love him. The stuff is incredible. We saw it all last year. Man, Emmett Sheehan is one of my favorite picks this year.
Oh, yeah. Good. I'm sorry, Nathan. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I am totally on board with that. And having looked back at my draft as a whole, I regret not taking Sheehan at that spot. My thinking was I had too many starters. I just took like 4 or 5 in a row or something. I can't keep taking starting pitchers, even though I like. But I love that pick. For the same reasons that you just articulated.
Yeah, he's a guy I'm going to reach for, and the fact that I didn't draft him, and here we are in round 9 is a glaring mistake. Yeah, Emmett Sheehan for the Dodgers looked so good, elite ace in the second half of the season when he was fully back, and I expect a full season of that. And he plays for the Dodgers. Oh my God, that's going to. So you're talking wins too, and all the things that come with that. Edwin Diaz signed as their closer. He's elite. And they signed Kyle Tucker, good defender, going to matriculate through that. The lineup. Oh, I mean, all signs point up for Emmett Sheehan, and he's the steal of the draft there in the 9th round.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, we're coming up about an hour and a half, guys, and we're looks like we're in round 10.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any thoughts? Like maybe we should, maybe kind of cut it, and then maybe we could come back next week or whatever's convenient for y'all and do some more. I don't know if we can bang out another 20 rounds.
Yeah, we did kind of get carried away a little bit.
It's my fault, man. I just talk and jibber jabber and blah 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 blah. I can't help it. I apologize.
I'm guilty too, man. Believe me, I'm sure I'm worse.
All right, so let's maybe talk about doing the 15 through 30. Maybe just get through round 15 here, and then do the second half next week. I guess that's kind of a ad hoc plan. What do y'all think about that?
Yeah, I'm down with that, man. It can double some content there for Sports Ethos.
Hell yeah, right on. I cannot complain. Right on. So let's go ahead and start to wrap things up here. So 9 and 10, we already talked about Cade Smith, but by the way, best reliever in baseball, I think, of the last couple of seasons, that he's going to get the chance to close. I love Cade Smith there. And then Sonny Gray, like you said, steady Eddie, man. You know what you're going to get. And then let's just circle back to Nathan here, rounds 9 and 10. Who are your two picks?
So my first was Jordan Westberg, who I do like the value of Jordan Westberg, but in hindsight, I think Sheehan presents better value. I was at a point now where my position player group is a little bit dry, and I realized we were getting to that point. I had just taken 4 straight starters. But in hindsight here, had I gone for a position player instead of Snell and then taken Sheehan, and it would have been a better draft. But again, why we do the mocks. The one I really want to talk about, and I have been banging the Luis Robert Jr. drum for I don't know how long, probably 6, 7 years since before I started in Sports Ethos. And let's say I had been saying the same thing for 8. If he ever gets traded out of Chicago, watch out, because their talent, their player progression system and the way that they help talent in Chicago is just not good enough. And I don't mean to target the White Sox, but they, amongst other organizations, have not done a good job cultivating talent. And he's regressed. Prior to last season, had regressed continuously. But he's working with the Boris a health team now, which I hope will keep him on the field. Again, that's my biggest concern. But his chase rate improved drastically. His raw power is as impressive as just about any center fielder in baseball. He can flick the ball to right center, 475, no effort. He can steal 40-plus bases easily. This is a player whose ceiling is an MVP candidate. And I wouldn't pin that on him because of the health. But I think if you told me that I can see no stat from him other than that he's going to play 152 games, then I would be very comfortable taking him and saying this is a 4th round, 3rd round type talent. I genuinely think he can be great with the Mets. I think he could have been great with the Dodgers or Phillies or Yankees or any other team that's not called the Chicago White Sox, who has a somewhat adequate player development apparatus. But this, for me, was one that I had targeted at the beginning of the draft, that Luis Robert Jr. is going to be on my team. This is where he's going in drafts. 10th round, I thought, was the latest that I could reliably take him. Could he bust out and end up, swing and miss returns and he gets hurt? It's possible, but the upside's just too good to turn down.
Yeah, I know. And the thing with me with Lou Rob is I don't know if I had you on the pod when I have this thought on him or not. But for me it is so we're sitting here pick 10 round 120. It's still a little early for me on Lou Rob on the value here because of the health concerns. And then also for me, in order for Lou Rob to get to elite status, one of two things have to happen. He has to either get the barrel rate back up to 15%, right? Because you're going to have a low contact rate, but his recent seasons where he had 9-10% on the barrel rates, it's got to be 15%. If you're going to be in a low 70s, high 60s on the contact rate, that barrel rate needs to be hella elite. Or he needs to improve the contact rate where that 9 or 10% barrel rate can play up to get him the power. So it's not like a bad hit tool is precludes production, but from Lou Rob, I got to see one of those two things happen. He either needs to make up for the poor contact rate with getting the barrel rate up to 15, or the contact rate needs to come up where the 9 and 10% barrel rate can play up. And you know what? The Mets are an organization that can do that. If he does it next year, I'll be one of the first ones to draft him in the top 50 picks. But for right now, for this year, I think I'm out.
I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, Britton, too, on the Lou Rob
All
slash
right.
Westberg as well. We'll leave him out.
Oh, I love Jordan Westberg. I think he's going to bat second for that loaded lineup and hit 20 plus home runs. And third, I think he's a great guy to grab at third base because I don't really like any of the other options too much at third base. But I don't want to make Nathan mad because I know you're a Mets fan. All due respect, I couldn't disagree more about Luis Robert Jr. He is without a doubt the most overrated player in Major League Baseball. So let me play devil's advocate. So he's been in the league 6 years. All right. He's had one boom year. one boom year. That was in 2023 when the ball they were using, and this is not just him throughout the league, the ball they were using was crazy. He had a total boom year. Listen to his home run totals for the other years, the other 5 years, starting back in 2020. 11, 13, 12, 14, 14. That's like Jurickson Profar style production for those 5 years. And now he did
maybe worse.
He did steal 33 bases last year. He stole 23 the year before that. So you do get production out of stolen base. I totally get that. But also his batting average last year was 223. His batting average the year before that is 224. And so you're not getting home runs. You're getting a batting average suck. You are getting stolen bases. So I totally understand that. And I don't know how the Mets feel about letting the guys run, but I guess we'll see. But you would know better than I would. But I'm just saying, for some reason, and I'm the only one that I know that says I don't get the Luis Robert Jr. love other than that 1 year. But look at his other years. It's been meh. I mean, but, you're right. Now that he's out of Chicago, maybe like a change of scenery. He's 28 years old. It's not too late to have a resurgence. But if you look at roster resource, he's going to bat at the bottom of the order. He's not getting up there with Lindor and Bichette because of the on-base stuff. So then his value is going to be depressed even more because less plate appearances mean less production. It's, that's just how it works. So if he's batting 8th on that lineup and he's going to hit 14 home runs, I think his value, we're in the 10th round. So it's not a bad upside thing, but but that's just my total devil's advocate, contrarian to the Lou Bob. But Nathan, don't get mad, man.
I get where you're coming from. And I get look, if you look at the production as a whole, I hate to say it to be this blunt, but he has been a bad Major League Baseball player for a lot more than he's been a good Major League Baseball player. And again, that one season, great, elite, that was an MVP candidate season. You put that in a capsule, you spread it across, but it hasn't happened. So there's no doubt I'm banking on the talent here, not the production. And my hope is that in terms of the pure talent, I think the hit tool is actually quite good. I think the eye is the problem, that it's the out of zone chase rate I'm really worried about. And the way that he tries to hit every pitch is a problem, and that needs to change. But and again, there's a lot of ifs here. And that's the biggest reason I think against taking Lou Bob is that there's 4 or 5 different ifs. Are they actually going to happen? But I believe in the upside because of how natural that talent is and the fact that he's never actually had a chance to develop in an organization that knows what they're doing. Now, again, there's a question mark here. I get that. But for me, I know that he's capable of hitting 35 homers. I know that he's capable of stealing 45 plus bags. He would have last year before the injury. It's just whether they can keep him on the field, which is I'm concerned about, admittedly, and whether they're able to rein in that chase rate enough. And I think if the chase rate continues to be reined in, you will see that barrel rate go to 15-ish%. You will see the end zone contact rate improve as well. So that's, again, ifs, right? And that's the whole challenge. Should I have waited to the 14th round, 15th round? We'll see. But, I'm not so sure that it's not a situation where look, I'm dying on the hill. I may look like an idiot here in a couple of months, but we'll see.
No, you're right. He's got 30-30 potential in there. It's just, he's just got to do it.
Yeah. Exactly. I got a list of guys that I need to see them do it before I am in, and he is on that list. I just got to see him do it. I know the talent's there. He really is. And, the Mets are really good. So hopefully, if I'm in a dynasty league and I can buy him low, then maybe. But, right now, I don't know that I can't imagine a situation where I ever have Lou Rob on my team unless he falls real far down, outside pick 175, 200. Then I'll be like, all right, that's some good upside there. So my 10th round pick, where I talked about Sheehan, I got Michael Harris the second here. And honestly, I hadn't gotten my third base yet. We talked about, a lot of, the shallowness of third base. So I was kind of hoping to maybe target. I can't remember who the targets were here at this round for me, but when I saw Michael Harris sitting there, I I had to take him. He's outside of pick 100 here. I think is incredible value. The one metric I look at last year that I loved was that he kept the 90% end zone contact rate, and he maintained that all year. And in fact, it got a little better in the second half, getting up to 92% on the end zone contact rate. And anytime you have a guy that hits the ball as well as he does, and he hits that much inside the zone, it's eventually going to come around. And it certainly did last year. He was incredible after, was it May? Like April and May, and maybe a little bit of June was just dreadful. But man, he kept making that contact inside the zone, and it turned around for him. And that's what I love about him. I love the fact and maybe I'm putting all my eggs in the end zone contact rate basket here. But he's got the talent, he's got the contact inside the zone. 5 category guy here at pick in the 12th round, no 10th round. I out close to pick 120. Yeah, I'm taking that all day. What are your thoughts on Mr. Harris? So we'll start with you, Brendan.
I think that's a great pick. He went 2020 last year. So you get a 2020 player in round 10. I don't know how you could pass that up. I think that's a great pick. Plus, I love the Cubs to have a bounce back with Bregman there, and just everything working out. I'm into Michael Harris. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Not the Cubs. What am I talking about? Sorry, guys.
Get the wires crossed.
Like, what am I talking about? No, I'm sorry. Michael Harris for the Braves. Yeah. Again, with 2020 last year, I think that's awesome value at that spot. And Yandy Diaz, man, he's. We talk about batting average, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do better about. Like, because batting average, like if you look at your roto leagues at the end of the year, it's razor thin, between like third and ninth, and like a thousandth of a point. Like it's that close. And to have solid batting average help with Diaz is awesome. And plus first base too, it's tough out there. It's tough out there. So I like Yandy Diaz this year.
Awesome. So let's move on to rounds 11 and 12 then. Starting with you, Britton. Who are your 11 and rounds picks in rounds 11 and 12?
2 pitchers, Trey Savage for the Blue Jays, and Cam Schlitter, or as we say at the Pollazzo Podcast, Schlitter's full, which is a Christmas Vacation reference. What up, Uncle Eddie? So Trey Savage, he's awesome. One of the best pitchers in baseball, I think. He was so dominant in the postseason. I just want him on all my teams to see what happens. Cam Schlittler's awesome too. That dude is a Fireball Jones type situation. Like he's a fiery competitor. I love the fact that he plays for the Yankees. So those are my 2 picks, Trey Savage and Cam Schlittler.
Right on. I love you, Savage, and I love that I was really afraid that his run in October was going to balloon his ADP where I thought he would be unaffordable. But it's not. It's not. The price is right there for you, Savage. So I am in on him at the price. And then the same thing with Cam Schlittler. Was such a major waiver wire find last year. And the Stuff Plus loves Cam Schlittler. So I love that pick as well. Nathan, what are your thoughts here?
Now, I'm in the same boat with honestly both of those pitchers. I mean, I do have a little bit of concern over the volume that Savage might have, in particular with how deep he pitched into the postseason and the heavy lifting that he had to do. But I think if you're patient with him, that's a great pick. I've seen Savage get overdrafted in a lot of leagues where like people reach in like the 6th, 7th round. I did it. I got to stop. Well, I guess it was you the first time. But that where Savage is getting plucked from the earlier rounds, I think, with too much consistency. This, I think, is a great spot, though, to get him in. I personally would have even been comfortable with going around higher, but the upside's there. In Schlittler's case, a bit more of a mixed bag in terms of last year. He had some iffy starts and some great ones, but the upside's there. And honestly, the 50th percentile outcome is a good outcome for an 11th round selection here, and the upside is so much higher. So I'm a fan of both of these starters, and it honestly makes me regret some of my earlier starting pitcher picks a little bit more to see how great value you got this low.
Yep. Right on, guys. So let's move things along here. Nathan, who you got in 11 and 12?
Sure. So I took Salvador Perez, in the 11th round, and I took Spencer Torkelson in the 12th. In Salvi's case, you know, I do think he was one of the unluckiest hitters in baseball last year when you look at the difference between expected batting average and expected slug and his actual slug and actual batting average. And obviously with Salvi, he swings at everything, and it's just going to be a matter of time until he swings at too much everything, and then he's no longer effective. But the volume is going to be great, I think, from Salvador Perez, and I think the production should actually improve. I know he's very old, but I think I can rely on 140 some games of play for a catcher eligible player. Torkelson, I'm a little bit less bullish on, if I'm being entirely honest. I more took him just because of the kind of drop off with some of the other first base options and the fact I didn't have one yet. But I think in hindsight, had I formatted my draft a little better, I could have had better options than Torque. Although the upside's still there, I just think the floor is a little too low for what he can provide.
Yeah, absolutely. And the multi-position flexibility for Perez is there. You know, the Royals are going to play him. They love him there. So I think they're going to play him. He's going to get catcher, first base, DH, kind of rotate in and out. We caught our Jensen there. So I think the playing time is there for Salvi. And then let's see here. Torkelson. Last time I saw his ADP was like around 180 around the same time as Christian Walker. I'm taking Torkelson over Walker every time. And
Yeah.
so I think, you know, it's a little bit of a reach here around 12, but I think the value is there. You know, I think it's a good discount for the potential floor that you might have with Torkelson, but the talent is definitely there. And he hits the ball with the kind of power that you need to not be worried about Comerica because he hits the ball hard enough that his power will play up anywhere. Brett, you got any thoughts on Salvi and Torkelson before I get to my 11 and 12?
Yeah, I love Salvador Perez there. Like, if you're going to wait on catcher, then why not wait on the guy that's been like the most consistent 30 home run hitter at the catcher position in the past 10 years, you know? And if you look at his metrics, it's all still red. There's no indication that anything's going to change this year from last year. So I think that's as solid as it gets. It's kind of one of those picks, like my Sonny Gray pick, where it's just so boring, and you're just like, oh yeah, like the what blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, all the stats are there, all the production is there, so it's a solid pick. I mean, did Spencer Torkelson have the quietest 31 home run season last year at first base? Does anyone know he had 31 home runs last year? Because that's what he did. With a 240 average, that's not great, but it's not going to kill you. So first base, is still good. Like here was I made this argument the other day. Why pick Austin Riley in the 5th round, who hit 19 home runs last year, 16 home runs the year before that, when you can pick Spencer Torkelson, 10 rounds later, who hit 31 home runs last year and is on the up. Like, if I just think you can wait on first base. Long story short, like, you can get Michael Busch later. Did I say Austin Riley? Yeah, Austin Riley plays third base. See, guys, I don't. Something's happening. I don't know.
For the corner infield spot.
Yeah, for the corner infield spot. Oh my god. Exactly. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, so Torkel, I love the value on Torkelson down in this round. Yeah, man, 31 home runs with a 240 average this late. Heck yeah.
Yeah. Right on. So my picks at 11 and 12, you mentioned already Yandy Diaz. Of course, you love the batting average, excellent hit tool. Batting on top of the Rays lineup, there are the Rays, I've heard a lot of people say that they want to, they fade Rays hitters because of the way they deploy their lineup, but not with Yandy. he's there. They don't take him out. They don't platoon him. They shouldn't platoon him. He is a mainstay in that lineup, game in, game out. So you're getting to the 150 plus games. You're getting to the plate appearances that you need. And I think he has better power than people may realize. His barrel rate has been at or above league average for 3 straight seasons. And I know he was at the Trop outside the Trop last year going back. He got to 20 homers already at the Trop once before. And I think it was like 2024 is when he got it. And that's because the barrel rate is now at or above league average, which kind of helps overcome the issue that he had with lift. So I think he's someone that can get to or at least sniff 20 homers with a good amount of runs, with the batting average there. And like you said, batting average is kind of at a premium. And for someone like Yandy Diaz, for me to be, I believe this is my first corner infielder pick. I kind of waited a long time here, but for them to be my first corner infield pick here at first base, I absolutely love it. With the floor here and everything. Then my 12th round pick is Michael King. Look, I love the fact that Michael King fell this far. I have him right behind Emmett Sheehan in my rankings. He is a guy that, the swing and strike rate dropped a little bit, just to 10.4%. But if you look at the stuff plus numbers, we're all still there. In fact, even the sinker stuff plus went up this year. So it's arguably a better pitch than it was even after the injuries. And then you're looking at the slider stuff plus is still there. The whiffs were still were relatively still there. It's not a major leap of logic to think that the swing and strike rate will go from around 10% back up to 12% that it was his first year as a starter to get him back to the mid to high 20% strikeout rate. And he's got pitching for the Padres, got the wins, the ratios are rock solid there. And so for me to be able to get someone who I have as a SP25 or better than SP25 in the 12th round, sign me up. I love me some Michael King. What are y'all thoughts on Diaz and King before we round things out with the last few rounds?
I'm 100% down. I love Michael King. I think he's going to have a great season. The Padres believe in him too. They just re-upped him. So I think he's a great, solid pick for your rotation. And I'm a Diaz guy. I love his batting average. He can make a big difference when it comes to your batting average, and to get that this late, it's really, really hard. So I like both those picks.
Cool. Nathan, any thoughts on these before we move on?
Yeah, and to add on to Yandy, I mean, he's also been an RBI machine when he's been given the opportunity. If you look at the batting average run at scoring position, which I know is a disputed stat because it is random year to year, but his approach gets a lot better. He chases less, but makes more contact with runners at scoring position. It really puts him in a great spot for a lineup where everything else is changing, but he's not. And I love that for Yandy Diaz's value, especially in a category league. And Michael King, I mean, the quality here you're getting is SP2, SP3 value at worst, I think. And where he is for a solid starter with like some more upside, I think it's great value too. So in my view, 2 for 2 with your 11th and 12th.
All righty. So let's go ahead and package rounds 13, 14, 15 to round out the podcast. Britton, give us a little bit on these 3 picks, who you got and why.
All right. Jurickson Profar for the Atlanta Braves. This was just a value pick. Let's see what. Yeah, he's like my outfielder 4, I hope, somewhere around there. But yeah, so last year he only played 80 games because of the PED suspension. But in those 80 games, he hit 14 home runs and 9 stolen bases. If you extrapolate that out, and I'm not sure I should do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Extrapolate that out. If he plays a full season, 28 home runs, 18 stolen bases. That's pretty solid post round 10, in this round 13. So that it's boring, but I think he's going to produce, and Roster Resource has him hitting 3rd in the Braves lineup. And after that embarrassing PED suspension, which he didn't tell the Braves about until the news hit, he saw, because of the Players Association, like they don't have to disclose that. So when he signed that contract, he knew it was coming down the pike. But anyway, so Jurickson Profar, I like as a sneaky 25-15 player. Nolvi Marte was my 14th round pick. I've always loved him, from the Seattle Mariners, one of the top prospects. He got PED suspension too, but this is his first full season. Good batting average, good power, and will run. I like Noelvi Marte too in the round 14. And then I don't know what to say about this one. Round 15, Gleyber Torres. I don't like Gleyber Torres. I don't want anything to do with Gleyber Torres. I don't know why I picked him. I think that was like a panic or something. I wish I had just picked Luis Garcia Jr., 3 rounds later, who I really like this year. So yeah, I don't know what happened with Gleyber Torres, but those were my picks.
Right on, right on. I see you began with Profar at the top. I like Profar. A lot of the skills did not diminish after he came back from the suspension. So it rock solid there. I love what Marte did there at the end of the year. It was a bit of a small sample, but I think this is a good discount. He was a big time prospect kind of guy, kind of the poster child right now for post hype kind of dude. At this point in the draft, it's not horrible value for me at Marte. I've seen a lot of people reach way high for him, and I'm not in that camp. But at this point, I don't have too many qualms with it. And then let's hear Gleyber Torres. A little early for him. I'm a little bit higher on him than most of you. The solid batting average, going to be batting at the top of the Tiger lineup. Going to get you a little bit of runs, a little bit of everything. And considering how shallow second base is, if this was a point in the draft where I don't know if you had a second baseman yet. So if you really needed second base at this point in the draft, it's not the worst pick that we've had in this show so far. There is some justification for it. So for Nathan, what are you looking at? What do you think about these 3 guys before you get your 3?
Yeah, well, we got the PED suspension theme of the 13th and 14th. But honestly, I kind of like it. In Profar's case, I'm a little bit worried how much of his breakout was due to the effects of performance enhancing drugs. And this is the difficulty with anyone that ever gets a PED suspension is oftentimes they're great players, but you don't really know what the effect was of the PEDs because we don't know how long he's been taking them. It's possible he was using it for a month in the off season and he got popped. It's possible he was using it for 6 months prior or a year prior. But I like Profar because I think the upside's there. Like, I think there's 25 upside. And if you're taking him in the 13th round, he gives that. I love Noelvi Marte even more than I love the Profar pick. And I think both of them are good. It's better value. A lot of people are reaching for Marte. But with the positional versatility, the fact that they have Gino Suarez now, so there's less pressure on him. Before that stretch run, he was on a tear. And it got in, having watched a lot of him live, it got into his head where he felt like he had to be the guy to do the damage for the Reds because that offense became anemic down the stretch. People forget they got into the postseason, but they weren't hitting down the stretch. They got into the postseason because the Mets were as embarrassing as I'm not going to go into an anti-Mets rant, but I want to. But the point was that they weren't scoring, and that kind of got into his head. And I don't think it'll be an issue now that they've got a bigger bat than himself in the middle of that order. And Gleyber Torres, hey, look, if Gleyber Torres signed with the Reds, I'd love this pick because his home runs are being killed at Comerica. But I had him last year in some leagues. He's a solid on base guy, but in a categories league, just the fact that the home run production is just killed by that ballpark, even with the fences in. So I wish that the qualifying offer wasn't accepted and he went somewhere else, but not to be, obviously, as you acknowledged yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Right on. Nathan, who are your final 3 picks here around 13, 14, and 15?
Sure. So in the 13th round, I took Xavier Edwards, who now I have mixed opinions on Xavier Edwards. I love the player in real life. Absolutely adore the player. He doesn't impact the ball much. So you're not getting anything from a power perspective, but he should hit for a good average, should get on base, should steal a ton of bags for a Miami team that loves to let their guys run wild. So I'm happy with that, especially given the second base, shortstop utility. Plug them where you need them. My favorite of the 3 is the Raisel Iglesias at 14-3. I expect him to be the full undisputed closer of Atlanta, and I know they brought Robert Suarez in. But Iglesias, well, he was a premium closer for like 80% of the year for last year. People just forget he was a dumpster fire at the beginning. And that he got a lot of crap for that from the Braves fans and from the media and whatnot. And I get that because obviously Atlanta underperformed greatly. But I view Iglesias as a guy who, for a really good pitching staff, should be the undisputed closer and a really good one at that. And I could see him getting 35 saves at a really good ERA with some. The strikeouts won't be off the wall for compared to other relievers. But I think that value for a reliever is fantastic. And Jacob Wilson being the 15th pick of my draft. I like Jacob Wilson. I mean, it's an average play. I think the power is unsustainable in theory, but that ballpark is conducive to, scamming a few homers here and there. I don't think he'll be as good as he was last year, but I still think he could be very good. And obviously now got the financial security. We'll see if that helps him. 7 years, 70 mil for him. So congrats to him. But I'm overall pretty satisfied with those three, although I'm not. I do look at a couple of the other picks and say, maybe I could have done that. Maybe I could have done this. And certainly if I played my earlier picks better, I could have done better. But I'm okay with three as all. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Xavier Edwards. I mean, good batting average. Going to love the steals. For me, it depends on your roster construction. I'm not familiar with like a lot of the guys. I'm not adding up the totals in my head. But if you were at this point in the draft, you needed some steals to kind of buck up, then yeah, absolutely, it's a great pick. He's batting the top of an okay Marlins lineup. Decent chance for some runs. I'm with you on Iglesias. I did fade him a little bit in my closer rankings, but you are getting him pretty late here. It's not like you're reaching too far. So that's another thing that I like about Iglesias here is the value you got. And then you mentioned the last one was Jacob Wilson. For me, it's a lot like Noelvi Marte. I'm not reaching much further than this, but I like the value. I like this draft price for him. I think the value is there. I think the ample. I think he's going to be a little bit better on runs and RBIs because of the team context, and he might not have home run power, but I think he's got doubles power.
Yeah.
I think that's going to help the RBIs with all the guys that are going to be on base for him. So I think the RBI and counting stats are going to be solid to go with the batting average. So he might not get more than 10 homers. Maybe he's like you said the word skim up a few extra homers, maybe getting to 11 or 12. But for me, I do like the fact that I think he's going to be a sneaky RBI play, given the team context and his ability to hit some doubles. Britton, where are you at on these guys?
I love the Xavier Edwards pick, especially in light of the two previous picks, which were Salvador Perez and Spencer Torkelson. Now they're going to hit 16 home runs, but they're going to give you 0 stolen bases or maybe 1 or 2. So picking Xavier Edwards right after those two makes perfect sense because Xavier Edwards is going to steal 30 bases. Now he's going to hit 1 or 2 home runs, but that's not what he's there for. He's there to score runs, steal bases, and provide batting average. Xavier Edwards is like a 280 batting average guy. So he's going to hit at the top of the Miami Marlins lineup. I think Marcy may hit first or maybe Stowers. I don't know, but Xavier Edwards is going to be up there, probably batting first, maybe second. But he's going to be up there and stealing bases, making things happen. That's his game. So I love it. I love it for that team context. I'm a big Raisel Iglesias fan. He was elite in the second half of the season. It was a blow-up Chernobyl DEFCON 5 ugly start to the season, but he righted it. He righted that ship. So he's going to be the closer for the Braves for the whole season. And Jacob, he's just a really good player.
Everybody got real bad right now.
Hello?
Y'all there?
Yeah, maybe there's like a speaker, a double speaker. I don't know.
You're actually coming in okay on my end, unless of course it's my.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
That's weird because maybe there's the microphone switch I had to do earlier. Things are okay for right now. If you want to try and keep going, Britton.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say Jacob Wilson is a great hitter. He's going to hit at the top of the Athletics lineup, and y'all know how I feel about the Athletics. I should just move to Sacramento because that's how much I love all those hitters in that AAA ballpark.
Right on, guys. So we'll round out here in my last three picks, rounds 13, 14, and 15. I locked in Carter Jensen as my second catcher, round 13. I reached a little bit here, but it's because I was at the turn and I was really worried about there being kind of a run on catchers that would miss out on a guy that I would lock in some catcher to value. So I felt a little pressure to reach for Jensen here. But I think he's got elite power upside. He's a guy that going to bat in a pretty solid Royals lineup, get some RBIs, and get that power up there. I mean, he's like a 20% barrel rate and an admittedly small sample size, but it definitely underscores the kind of power ability that he has. So I might be a little bit of a reach, but given the league settings and the fact that I'm at the turn, I really wanted to lock in my catcher too here and avoid a run and have to pick up someone that I really don't like later. And then I was ecstatic at the fact that I got my first closer at round 14, and it's David Bednar. That 2024 season just looks so much like an outlier. If you go and take a look at the overall contact numbers, the swing and strike numbers, all the metrics just plummeted and cratered for one season. And then they came back the next year. And that's the thing with relievers, is that there's such a small sample for them in general, right? We're talking about 60 innings, 70 innings on a season, which translates to less than half a season for a starter. So it's inevitably a small sample size, and so it's real easy to overreact to a poor season from a reliever. And I think we saw him come back last year was the dude that he was when he was an all-star in Pittsburgh, elite swing and miss, just a bona fide number one closer. And for me to get him around 14, I think was an incredible steal. And then my 15th round pick was Matt McLain. I think it's a solid discount for someone who went 15 and 15 last year. I'm pretty sure this is my first second baseman, and so he's filling a need. And look, the Cincy lineup, it just got better with Eugenio Suarez, and so if he's batting the top of that lineup, getting the steals, and being able to score extra runs, and he's a guy that I think we're sitting at a discount, and he was a very popular pick last year, ended up not working out, but this is the discount that I'm looking for a guy that has the type of potential that he does. I think 15 and 15 is the floor. And for my first second baseman on my team at round 15, I think is a solid value. What are y'all's thoughts on my three guys before we round out the pod?
I love Carter Jensen. He in some prospect rankings, he's number 3. Like he's just shot up the prospect ranks. Carter Jensen for the Kansas City Royals. I think he's going to be great. David Bednar, getting the New York Yankees closer in round 15 is just a steal. I mean, it's going to be like 30 home runs. McLain was a big time prospect, but he's been injured. If he stays healthy, sky's the limit. Plus, he plays for Cincinnati, and everybody loves that.
Yeah, I think it's, in my opinion, 3 for 3. I mean, I think Jensen's the kind of guy that is definitely excusable to reach for. Now, I mean, people look back at draft rankings or ADP rankings all the time, but at the end of the day, if you get your guy, nobody cares whether you took him in the 13th round or the 15th round or the 17th round. If he has the type of season that some think he can, then that's a great pick. Bednar, as we've said before, absolute steal for. I was kind of surprised if both Bednar and Iglesias were available at that point. I would have been happy with either. And Bednar, I think, is a very strong choice. And Matt McLain, I took him last year in a number of leagues. He ticked me off, but it's such a smart pick at 15. It's just like the floor. Yeah, okay, but maybe he's like a roster filler type floor, but the upside is like a top 8 round type player. So him at 15 in a better lineup. Obviously, the ballpark's still great. He's got to get the ball in the air a little bit, man, and he'll be in business. But I have a 3 for 3 for me. Honestly, I am impressed with this these rounds for all three of you of us at this point.
Well, I appreciate that, Nathan. I really do. Before we end the podcast, I'll begin with you, Britton. Just quick takeaway. What are your thoughts on how the draft went, and just some general strategy thoughts before we close things out? Any additional things you want to add on?
Well, one of the great things about doing a mock draft is that you learn. You learn about the players. You learn about what players you want to take when, and so it's a great great learning tool to use the mock draft. And thank you again for inviting me. I had a great time. I love talking to you guys about drafting and picks and fantasy baseball. It's a blast. But the main thing that I learned is that I want to jump on third base early. I want Jose Ramirez. I want to reach for him. I want Junior Caminero. I want Manny Machado, even though he's old and boring, but he still puts up numbers at the end of the year after year after year. Once you get past those three guys, I think it gets real ugly. It's now you do, like Nathan drafted Jordan Westberg, I believe, which, you get 20 home runs out of him, but you get elite production out of like Jose Ramirez and Junior Caminero. That just puts you at such an advantage. So I think that was one of the big things that hit me like a ton of bricks, is that, man, third base is real weak this year if you don't get one of those elite guys.
Or Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, I heard on third, and my strategy with third base is actually going for a couple of the guys that are going to move to third base and get eligibility there. As it turned out, I ended up with Westberg, who obviously will play there regardless. But it's a thinner position than people realize, especially if you're not willing to take a gamble on someone like Austin Riley. Quite personally, I would be, but again, those guys go higher because there's less options otherwise. So once you get the top three off the board, you'll have people reaching for a Riley or someone beneath that. But yeah, in terms of hindsight, I really just needed to focus more on best available player and less of the positioning. I got a bit unlucky at the beginning, and then I think screwed myself over by not. I took starters when I didn't need to take starters in the fifth and sixth round, and then didn't take starters because I took too many starters in the 10th, in the 9th and 10th. So really just focusing on value, especially if you're in an active league. You can always make trades if you've got the best value. Worry about the holes later, but especially if you're in a league with playoffs, you can afford to have an unbalanced roster for 3 weeks, trade off some guys, and then you'll be in good shape.
Right on. And then for me, this is kind of how this is a typical, I guess you call it Paul Williamson 12-team draft. I'm waiting on pitchers because I really love my 1, 2, 3 and Schwellenbach, Sheehan, King. I was able to pick those guys up, and I got some guys we'll talk about in the next podcast later on that I think are SP2, SP3 values that I'm getting post pick 150. So I this kind of solidifies kind of what I think a 12-team strategy should look like. But also kind of harp on the third base thing. I'm currently without a third baseman at this point in the draft, and so whether or not that's a mistake or not, it's interesting for me because I try not to reach too far. And I know I talked about how I went with Michael Harris as a third baseman in that round, but I couldn't pass up that value. And then the value of the third baseman that I was seeing at these rounds just wasn't there. So I will say, if you don't get those third basemen early, if they go off the board way too quick for your liking, don't be afraid to wait. Don't reach. Don't sit there and say, well, I really, really, really need a third baseman, so I'm going to go ahead and snag, Colt Keith or something like that in the top 200 or something like that, just because you need a third baseman. Go ahead and wait. Just like, you know what? I didn't get the top third baseman. Why am I going to reach at pick 150 just because I need a third baseman? Go ahead and get a top 200 or so third baseman around pick 200 and continue to have you continue to have a solid value in all your rounds, and you still get good value at the pick that you're at third base later. So that for me, that's kind of a general thought on that, is that if you just miss out, don't panic, don't reach. go ahead and continue to get the value that you want, and then find a pocket in the draft where the value makes sense to pick up the player at the position that you don't currently have. And so, we'll get some more in the second podcast. But I think I did okay at my third base position later in the draft, and we'll talk about that then. Kind of a nice little foreshadow. Anything else you want to add, Britton, Nathan? Anything you want to add before we wrap things up?
No, just thank you very much for letting me come on and talk fantasy baseball with you guys. Paul, Nathan, I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. And please tune in for our next podcast, because now we're doing round 15 or 16 through 30. That's where things really get interesting, including Nathan snaking J.J. Weatherholt. Looks like he may start the year as the second baseman for the Cardinals. So really good picks later on in this draft.
Yep.
Yeah, well, thank you for the shout out, and thank you for coming on, Britton. Really enjoyable to discuss. And you've got some picks of your own that I took a look at. Are obviously we'll save the notes for next week, but that I was really impressed with in terms of snags. And look, when you get later in drafts, you don't have to worry about value and ADP as much. You're just taking shots at who can stick on my roster, who can make an impact. And there's certainly names from all three of us and plenty even otherwise that caught an eye that I think could be guys that you'd say, oh, well, if I took them in the 10th round, I'd have been happy. And they're taking 25 or beyond. So excited to discuss those in a week's time.
Some of the players that y'all took later on in the draft are players that I've written down, old school pen and paper, like don't forget to draft these or target these players. So, but that's the beauty of doing drafts like this, that you learn a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, real quick reminder to everybody, make sure you follow me on Twitter at PaulW_34. Follow Britton Allan on Twitter as well. Britton Allan, BrittonAllan, not EN. Make sure you subscribe to the Pollazzo Podcast on YouTube. And also you can follow the podcast at the Pollazzo Podcast on Twitter. And then follow Nathan on Twitter as well at NBakerNGB. That's at NBakerNGB. And he's also found on Sports Ethos. Get all of his content there as well. Make sure you check out the draft guide at Ethos Fantasy BB on Twitter, at Ethos Fantasy MLB on Bluesky. We got that dropping right now. Got the Williamson 300 rankings in the works coming up. We got the AK Dynasty 300 for Anthony Cates. You got all of Nathan Baker's content. So make sure you check us out at sportsethos.com and follow us there to get access to that. And one last ask, please rate and subscribe to the podcast. Please rate and subscribe to the podcast. Really help push it out. Love it forever. Same thing on YouTube at Sports Ethos, the Sports Ethos channel on YouTube. All right, y'all. Let's go and wrap things up here. I'm Paul Williamson. He's Britton Allan. Got Nathan Baker. This has been Fantasy MLB Today, a Sports Ethos presentation brought to you by FanDuel. Y'all have a good one.